Chapter 4392. Zeus always looks as usual, making people wonder what he is thinking. Even if someone is really good, he just nodded slightly. For example, when King Jolong talked about his way, he was dead without regrets, he was lonely, and the people in the world went to sacrifice, and the god of the earth nodded slightly. Finally, all the supremes have been narrated. They looked at the cosmic gods who were indifferent to their emotions. Some of them could not help expressing their dissatisfaction. They were obviously better, while others were confident and thought that they would be at the top. "Child, it's your turn." After everyone said it, the god of Zhou looked at Jian Wushuang and smiled. "Yes." Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, suppressed the throbbing in his heart, kept himself calm, and walked out of the crowd. He knew that if he only talked about understanding the Tao, he would never be the 15 supreme opponents present. Anyone present was a strong man who had practiced no less than 100 chaos periods, and even an old monster with thousands of chaos periods. Even if the sword Wushuang is arrogant, he doesn't think that his own heritage will be deeper than these old monsters who have experienced long years of sedimentation. However, this does not mean that Jian Wushuang is afraid, and will lose without fighting. In his heart, he also has the Tao that he understands. "Child, are you ready?" The cosmic god asked with a smile. "Ready." Jian Wushuang nodded seriously. "Come on, talk about the word you understand." The words fell, and the palace fell silent. Jian Wushuang did not answer in a hurry, but raised his head, looking through the magnificent Xiaoguang, looking far away. A reminiscence appeared in his eyes. He began to recall what he saw and heard along the way. When the other supreme saw this, he immediately sneered in contempt. "Pretend, this sword is unparalleled, but it has been practiced for 700,000 years. The little boy who hasn't dried up can understand what it means?" It is true that this sword is unparalleled in talent, but the understanding of Tao is not a talent that can be determined. Yes, just wait and see how this sword Wushuang waits for laughter. These supremes shook their heads one after another with a sense of superiority in their hearts. Just then, Jian Wushuang finally spoke. He had a quiet voice, no moodiness, and no pretentious lowness, as if he was telling a thing calmly. "The way I understand. It's not a flood or a universe, it's not ordinary, it's not noble, it's like the wind flowing in the air, and the sand in your fingers. It looks like you can't hold it, but it exists beside everyone. Tao is a very fair word. Whether you are the power of a party that destroys the world by raising your hands or the child of the world who is only childish without a sword, they all have their own Tao. My sword warriors rises in the midst of the earth, and once walked through thousands of mountains and rivers and watched the waves of the earth. The road I think is the rural farm cooking smoke, which is the rain falling from the air to nourish weeds and weeds. Drilling out of the stone gap, being chewed and swallowed by the old cow was aging, and then divided and eaten. It's the cycle of heaven and earth, it's also breaking fate, it's in the midst of things, it's also impermanence. It is 4 seasons, spring and autumn, it is the old, the sick, the dead, it is the bodhisattva's lower eyebrows, and it is also King Kong's anger. Everyone's way is different, but everyone's way is the same way. You can turn the avenue into an estuary, and the process of chasing the road is to break the wind and break the waves. The world is full of vicissitudes, life is full of plants and autumn, even if you are in a well, but as long as your heart is starlight and you have a fearless heart, you will be able to achieve it. Jian Wushuang said slowly in his words, "Tao seems to be just a very ordinary thing. It is not as magnificent as other populations say, nor is it the chaos of the universe, the sky and the heavens." After he finished speaking, the audience gradually fell into a short silence. There was no ridicule and no sneer this time, and everyone frowned, thinking carefully about the words of Sword Wushuang. They can achieve supremacy, naturally no one will be a simple character. The words that Jian Wushuang said, like a key, opened their new door. Each of them is high, and each is a hegemon. No matter where they go, they are complements. Their eyes have always looked at the upper part, not like Jian Wushuang, to bow their heads and observe the human world. They suddenly realized that they might have overlooked ordinary things among ordinary ones. Just then, a harsh noise suddenly sounded. What is messy? Jian Wushuang, what are you talking nonsense, want me to see? The Tao is very simple, the one that makes me stronger is Tao. Seeing Luo Zi that day, he sneered coldly. As soon as this remark ended, Jian Wushuang didn't say anything, and some other supreme masters who did not have resentment with Jian Wushuang suddenly became ugly and turned to stare hard at him. Just now, Jian Wushuang's words gave them some inspiration. They were thinking, but suddenly interrupted by Tian Luozi's words. Any ants, talk about the avenue? This person is called Tian Luzi, isn't it? With such a heart, what's the big deal? People who haven't even touched the origin of Tao dare to say that others are nonsense? For a moment, these people who had no resentment with Wu Jianshou sarcastically said. Suddenly, Tian Luozi's face was blue and white, and he was shocked and afraid. The of the universe narrowed his eyes, and with a big wave of his hand, a torrent of mighty power poured out, and under the touch of the sky Luo Zi disappeared and evaporated. After doing all this, Zhou God brought a smile on his face again, and let the disciples beside him give the bamboo card to Jian Wushuang. Did you see the 10 futons under the old husband's seat? The 10 futons are the positions of the 10 sermons. And the old man just asked the disciples to give you a bamboo card, and the 10 futon sorted numbers are displayed. If you get any number, you will sit on a futon. As for the number that is not displayed on the bamboo card, it means that it will be eliminated and you can leave the Ling Shao Palace later. With this remark, everyone's pupils shrank. Since God of the Era said that according to the number on the bamboo card, to decide which futon to sit on, I am afraid that this futon is far from as simple as the surface. This place has heard people say that the more the futon leans on the former, the deeper it becomes when listening to the sermon. A supreme eyes burned. Is that so? For a moment, everyone frowned and looked down at the bamboo card in their hands. Jian Wushuang also turned over the bamboo card and looked down. I saw a number, slowly twisting and condensing like a snake. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang trembled. Chapter 4393. I can see that the condensed number on this bamboo card is an extremely conspicuous one. Jian Wushuang looked up at the of the sky fiercely, and as soon as he said something of thanks, he saw the voice of the of heaven, with a smile ringing in his mind. Thank you for your thanks. Although you CNT say how deep the word of the Tao is, it has a unique style and unique ingenuity. The old man puts you in the first place, which can be regarded as my old friend. Jian Wushuang is not an arrogant person. He nodded when he heard the words and stopped talking. And other supremes also saw their own numbers. Am I too? Long Qing narrowed his eyes, his face was slightly greedy, and then he seemed to remember something and could not help humming. Since I'm second, then who is eligible to be first? The king of Zhejiang also flashed his eyes. The number displayed on his bamboo card was 3. Presumably everyone has seen their numbers, and they will be seated in their respective arrangements. The other ones can retreat. Zeus smiled and spoke. Suddenly, the 6 people who did not get the digital bamboo card were all disappointed on their faces. Overlord is among them. He was born a domineering body by force to demonstrate that his years of practice were not long. Naturally, his understanding of Tao would not be profound. Leader, then I will go first. The Overlord's tone was difficult to hide. It is good. Jian Wushuang nodded. A few moments later, all the people in the palace went away, leaving only 10 people. With a wave of the god, 10 blue futons appeared under the god. These 10 futons seem ordinary, but upon closer inspection, there is a faint avenue charm in them. 10 people looked at each other one by one, pressed their excitement, and quickly sat down to their seats. When Jian Wushuang sat down on the first futon, the other 9 people's faces all changed slightly. Long Qing clenched his fists even more, and his eyes showed a sense of indignation. This sword is unparalleled. What qualifications are there on him to overpower him? The next moment, Long Qing turned his head and peered with Green Dog Supreme, and his heart was all about making a decision. After this cosmic event was over, he would kill Jian Wushuang again. They can see that Jian Wushuang is very much pleased by the Lord God of the Gods, and goddess love for the sword Wushuang almost jumps out of the paper. If Jian Wushuang had worshipped Lord God of the God before as a teacher, the previous hatred would be nothing, but since Jian Wushuang did not worship the of the universe, they believed that even if he killed the sword, the of the universe would not say anything. After all, the of the universe is the master of the universe, and it must be a balanced technique. After Jian Wushuang sat on the futon, he suddenly felt a soft power flowing from the futon and swimming around. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang only felt like he was suddenly awakened. Jian Wushuang could not help secretly surprised. Subsequently, the two disciples under the seat of the Zhou lighted 2 Mediterranean sandalwood, bowed back, and closed the gate of the Lingshao Palace. In the rising sandalwood, the Zhou slowly began to preach. The beginning of heaven and earth begins with chaos. Chaos breaks apart, everything is resurrected. Time travels like Baiku over the gap. For the 10 people including Jian Wushuang, the universe race has just begun, but for most people, the universe race has ended, bringing the curtain to a close. In the depths of the universe, Diwu Temple is located. The head of the main hall of Diwu Temple, Black Feather Supreme, wears a purple gold crown, wears a purple gold black robe, and sits high on the throne. Several Supremes stood in the hall respectfully, waiting quietly for the dispatch of Supreme Black Feather. All of you, Jian Wushuang and Jiujie Wang of the Palace of Life, are listening to the Midnight Palace. Once the two have finished listening, I am afraid that there will be a qualitative leap in strength, especially Jian Wushuang, which is very likely to break the Supreme. At that time, if the two return to the Temple of Life, unite the Bloodwave Supreme and the Axe Supreme who has recovered from injuries, etc., it will bring us a devastating blow to the Diwu Temple. Instead of this, we might as well seize the opportunity first, set foot on the two men's back road first, and once again kill Jian Wushuang and Jian Wushuang, and then level this enemy of the universe. Black Feather's supreme voice was cold and slowly spoke. The voice dropped, and several other Supremes suddenly looked at each other. One of them said hesitantly, "Dian Lord, the battle that besieged the Temple of Life 30,000 years ago, although the vitality of the Temple of Life was severely injured, but we were also severely damaged, what do we use to fight the Temple of Life?" The other Supreme also nodded in echo. Heiyu Supreme heard the words and smiled indifferently. Rest assured that this time the siege of the Life Shrine once again, of course, it will not be our day shrine only. This block has contacted 30,000 years ago and shot at the Life Shrine together. In addition to the other 6 major forces, in addition to the great Japanese God Kingdom is not willing to participate in the war, the other major forces are willing to join forces again and completely settle the Temple of Life. Last time, the Shrine of Life was still lucky enough to survive, but it was the glory of the legacy of that catastrophe and the old guy from Gaffo who fought hard. Now that the share of the Eye's glory and Life Shrine has been exhausted, and the old guy in Ji also fell asleep, who can stop us? Even if Wu Jianxian of the Starry Sword sect, how about another shot? I don't say that I can win her, but it is enough to hold her for a while and a half. That time is enough to settle the Shrine of Life today. Heiyu Supreme Yin smiled, full of evil. The other Supreme heard the words, and they stared at each other with a sneer on their faces. At the same time, Bingyu Supreme, Qiang Emperor, Blood Temple Master, etc., are also rushing back to their respective forces to raise men and horses, ready to give a blow to the Temple of Life. Time flies, 5 years have passed. There was a silence in the Lingshao Palace, only the voice of the god of Zhou slowly talking. The Tao is the same, the non-permanent is the same, the name is also the name, and the non-permanent name. The nameless, the beginning of all things, the famous, the mother of all things, the mysterious door. Except that the of the universe is still sober, whether it is the half-step invincible supreme such as Long Qing or the ultimate master such as Jian Wushuang, all are closing his eyes and falling into the deepest level of enlightenment. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes tightly. He seemed to have traveled through time and space and Shenhuang Honghuang, and it was still a time of chaos in the universe. With the explanation of the universe, this fuzzy and chaotic world began to change gradually. The clear air rises to form the sky, and the cloudy air sinks to form the earth. In the middle, the innate 5 elements evolved, with the mountains and the sea, with flowers, birds, beasts, and insects, and gradually all kinds of life were born in the chaos. The first generation of the universe appeared. Jian Wushuang's mind became clearer and clearer. He wandered in the long river like a small fish, gradually clarifying the essence of power. On him, a boulevard of radiance surrounds him, fairy radiance rises, and the starlight flashes. In Jian Wushuang's body, the barrier between the ultimate dominator and the supreme began to collapse step by step. Jian Wushuang began to move to a whole new realm. Chapter 4394. Time passed and 5 years passed again. 5 years is too short for the supreme realm, but it's just a matter of snoring, just between your fingers. Time is almost the cheapest thing for them, but these 5 years of the cosmopolitan event are extremely precious every minute and every second. When the explanation of the show was over, it was not until a long time later that everyone slowly opened their eyes, as if they were awake at first dream. Is this the avenue? Everyone looked down at their palms, sighing and sighing. In this short period of preaching, the gains were unprecedented. Although it does not have an intuitive improvement, it opens up the field of vision and makes everyone see things beyond the original field of vision. It can be said that this sermon has created the best foundation for future promotion. As long as all of the words of Lord God of the God are digested, then breakthrough of the invincible supreme, but it is a natural success. Long Qing clenched his fists, his eyes filled with excitement. The same is true of several other supremes, and their faces are extremely ecstatic. The avenue that the gods talk about is like a key, which has completely opened up the difficult levels on all the roads in front of them and cleared all obstacles on the road. It can be said that the pavement paved a way for them to go straight. No wonder the Supreme Master of the Universe is struggling with every effort and wants to be a boy under the seat of the Colossus, having the opportunity to listen to the avenue. This is too great a fortune, exclaimed an old veteran half-step invincible. You must know that they can grow into half-step invincible and supreme powerhouses. Almost all opportunities in the universe, they have been able to achieve the desire and desire, not mind. For them, the only thing they want, or can attract them, is a breakthrough in the realm. But how easy is it to want to take that step and become invincible? There are many supremes in the universe, but they can become invincible supremes and stand at the top to overlook the entire universe. There are only a few people in the past. I don't know how many people have been stuck in this realm all their lives and can't get in. The of the universe, like an enlightenment teacher, reopened their path to practice and made them find their way again. This may seem simple, but only by far surpassing them in the realm can we do it. Wait, thank the gods of the universe. Taking a deep breath, everyone fell on their knees toward the God of God, saying congratulatingly. At this moment, even arrogant as the king of 9 calamities, his eyes are full of awe. Anyway, the of the earth shook his head, his eyes turned, and he looked at the sword unparalleled. In the audience, only the sword is unparalleled, and still not awake. Jian Wushuang still sat cross-legged on the futon, his eyebrows tightened tightly, and a wave of violent divine power broke out around him, like waves, and waves of fierce slaps on the 4 sides. Now, he has fallen into the most critical step of impacting the Supreme. The barrier between the ultimate dominator and the supreme divine realm has been fragmented, but it is like a broken wire, firmly resisting the sword's unparalleled impact. Once the impact is successful, Jian Wushuang will prove the supreme avenue. And if the impact fails, the barriers will be reorganized, and Jian Wushuang's tens of thousands of years of accumulation will be turned into a bamboo basket. Is it about to break? God raised an eyebrow, then smiled slightly. Well, little guy, the old man will help you. The words fell, and God reached out his fingers, and flew toward Jian Wushuang's brows. Suddenly, a boulevard red lotus floated out from the fingertips of the gods and shot into Jian Wushuang's brows. Huh! In an instant, the addition of this bougainvillea lotus was like the last straw that overwhelmed the camel, and the barrier between the ultimate master and the supreme divine realm shattered. The breath of Jian Wushuang began to skyrocket at a speed never before. He finally entered the ranks of the Supreme. The clouds of thunderous thunder began to converge from a distance. Good. Zhou Shun nodded in satisfaction, then glanced over Long Qing and others' faces and stroked Su with a smile. This cosmopolitan event is over. The old man is looking forward to the next time you see you, how far you can grow. After saying that, with the wave of the god, the entire Lingshao Palace is like a fortress built on the beach and piled with sand. It gradually disappears and disappears as the wind blows. After a few breaths of time, the of the universe disappeared in front of everyone with the entire palace and 2 disciples. The scenes of the crowd also changed. I saw the surroundings turned into a bright starry sky. Where is the shadow of the half-night palace? If it weren't for the fact that you could feel the real improvement on the avenue, everything would be like a dream. Rumble. There are more and more dark clouds, as if all the dark clouds of the entire universe are gathered here. It is vast, covering the sky. A horror of extreme coercion came to the audience. Under this coercion, even the half-step invincible supreme, such as Long Qing, has changed his face. Not good. Jian Wushuang is going to break the supreme. Stop him. Never let him break the supreme. Long Qing and Blue Dog are supreme, turning their heads abruptly, and looking at Xiang Jianwushuang, their killings flashed in their eyes. Long Qing, I have received a message from our temple master. They have assembled and are about to attack the Palace of Life. At this time, we must not let the sword unparalleled break through the supreme. I know. Long Qing's face suddenly gloomy to the extreme. Jian Wushuang's talent and strength, he is obvious to all. Jian Wushuang is still in the ultimate of the realm. He can kill the supreme. If you let him break through supreme, how can you still have? Once Sword Warrior breaks through the supreme, he can completely grasp the Terra Excalibur, exert the full power of the Terra Excalibur, and the Chaos Overlord will go further. At that time, I am afraid that no one in the entire universe can cure him. And at that time, it will be the beginning of their 6 forces, the disaster. Kill. Long Qing sensibly spoke, and as soon as he stepped down, he went to the sword Wushuang. Ha! Instantly, the void exploded. This time, the universal race of the universe. He broke through half-step invincible supreme, and his strength has soared again. This time he will kill sword unparalleled. Ha! However, before he met Jian Wushuang, a figure in white, had already taken the lead, stood in front of Jian Wushuang, and waved at him. I'm here today, who can hurt Swordsman half? The King of 9 Kings looked indifferent, blasted out with one hand, and made a move with Long Qing. Rumble! In an instant, I saw the place where the two met, and a shock wave that destroyed the world swept out, shattering the surrounding starry sky and turning it into powder. Long Qing took 3 steps back and rushed away the strong wind, and her expression was instantly furious. King of the 9 calamities, how dare you stop me? The King of 9 Kings looked expressionless, first glanced at the invincible Jian Wushuang behind him, then raised his eyelid again to look at Long Qing, and said coldly, "What kind of thing do you dare call me by name?" The King of Jiujia struck by Shuesheng Shui, with white hair flying, looking at Long Qing's eyes, with ancient indifference. His arrogance is even better than the sword unparalleled. As early as when he broke through the supreme, his strength was only 1 line from the top supreme. Now he broke through the medium supreme and drank God tea at the cosmopolitan event. He heard the avenue. The strength has not only improved by a little bit. You know, if it comes to talent, the King of Jiujia is only surrendered to those under the swordless twins. What am I? Long Qing heard the words, and immediately burst into anger and laughed, killing his eyes to the extreme. Okay, King 9 calamities, since you are dying yourself, then blame this ruthless one. You will be buried with Jian Wushuang. Green Dog, come together and kill the two. Chapter 4395. Kill. The Blue Dog Extreme turned over with his right hand, and a black exterminator spear appeared in his hand. He knew that at this moment was not a time for delay. He had to be killed while Jian Wushuang experienced thunder and calamity, otherwise, Once the sword Wushuang broke through successfully, it would be unknown who would die. Ha! The green dog supreme stepped, and suddenly turned into a shooting star, rushing towards the king of 9 calamities. No one has arrived yet. Thousands of thunder exploded. On the other side, Long Qing also performed mystery and opened his mouth to spit out a crimson shell after extreme compression. 2 people kill at the same time. The king of 9 robbers stood in front of Jian Wu, with white hair hunting and flying. In the face of the 2 powerful men killed at the same time, his expression was not happy or sad, his hands instantly printed. First calamity, mark of doom. Rumbles. The power of terror instantly condensed in the void. This mighty power directly formed a huge fingerprint of the sky, which was crushed down by the mighty and merciless. This huge handprint is densely covered with palm prints, and each palm print is full of spirits. Not only is it powerful, but it also has a devastating atmosphere that is violent to the extreme, and it is slammed on the blue dog that came from the attack. Ha! Under the intersection of the 2, directly blast the surrounding stars. Break me! The green dog extreme roared, and the supreme divine power of the surging majestic shore condensed on the destroying spear, and stabbed at the center of this handprint. I saw that this handprint was poked out of a hole, and the green dog supreme was photographed instantly. After doing all this, the king of 9 kings didn't even look at the green dog supreme, and turned his head again to welcome Long Qing. Second calamity, big suppression. Third calamity, big Huang Quanin. I took 2 consecutive palm shots, and I saw that the scene suddenly changed dramatically on this day. In the sky, 5 towering mountains condensed into reality, carrying hundreds of millions of gravity, suppressing them. On the earth, a faint yellow spring, as if ingested from Jiuyo, exudes a sense of annihilation, rolling towards Long Qing. The surging sound of water rang, and this Huangquan circled like a big python, entangled Long Qing. The crimson artillery shells fired from Long Qing's mouth shot into Huangquan, and just smashed a spray, and then disappeared. Suddenly, the king of 9 calamities defeated the enemy with 1 enemy and 2. Click and wipe. The Huangquan River circled up and entangled Long Qing, and the highly corrosive Huangquan River water completely eroded Long Qing's golden robe. King of calamities! Suddenly, Long Qing's pupils shrank and roared. He never imagined that just being ranked as the most supreme king of the 9 calamities was so powerful that he could compete with him. In the distance, the blue dog's supreme complexion was gloomy, and his gaze flashed. A sword unparalleled, a king of 9 calamities, this life shrine also contains the 2 most powerful Tianjiao of this era. If you don't slash these 2 people today, Diwu Temple will not even be qualified to compete with the Temple of Life. The thoughts of the blue dog supreme flashed quickly. Jian Wushuang and Jiu Jiawang were like 2 bright twin stars, which were too dazzling. A 9 calamity king made them feel so difficult. If they waited for Jian Wushuang to break through the supreme, wouldn't it be possible for them to sweep the entire universe? Diwu's secret art, God? Taking a deep breath, the green dog supreme cast a smash hit. Rumble! The heavens and earth boiled suddenly, and numerous voids opened a crack, setting off a void storm and space debris. Behind the blue dog supreme, a huge ghost is condensed. This ghostly ghost has a dog-headed face, like a lingering messenger walking out of hell, and slowly opens his eyes. A pair of scarlet eyes shot like a laser. The next moment, the ghostly ghost raised his dark arm, and a long spear of the sacred was lifted by him, and shot towards the king of Jiulong. Rumble! Countless voids collapsed and annihilated, and a galaxy smashed the spear directly into 2 sections, pulling out a fierce sound explosion in the air. This spear, destroying and dying, is overbearing to the extreme. When the king of Jiulong saw this, even if he couldn't help but change his face. Talent is supernatural, demon evolves. The Jijiawang drank a low voice, which directly brought out his talent as a perfect chaotic creature. Suddenly, the king Jujia's breath was extremely strong, and it rose again and again. The terrifying breath swept away, and a void storm was directly rolled up, and numerous gale winds roared and roared. At the center of the storm, the 9 Calamity King's skin became dark, and a crisscross pattern emerged from his body. Ha! This spear finally stabbed, and hit the king of Jiulong. This spear is really too strong. If in the past, the king of 9 calamities would naturally choose to retreat and avoid its edge. But now he can't retreat, he can only do it. Because behind him is the sword unparalleled. Ha! Suddenly, this spear directly exploded the hands that King 9 Calves resisted, terrifying power. It exploded dozens of times in the 9 kings. The king of 9 kings opened his mouth to spit out the blood, and his face instantly lost his blood, pale to the extreme. And he hasn't waited for a little recovery. Roar! On the other side, Long Qing, who was entangled in the water of the Huangquan River, groaned, and finally appeared the body, turning into a 6-clawed golden dragon with a length of thousands. If his eyes were about to spit fire, his claws would twitch at will, and he would directly tore the Huangquan River water thinly. King of the 9th calamity, even if you try to go against the sky? Death to this seat. The next moment, Long Qing was in a shape of a shuttle, and rammed directly towards the king of Jiulong. Going against the sky? King Jiujia wiped away the slightest blood in the corner of his mouth, as if he had heard some funny jokes. Sun Han said, "One thought. The kingdom of God." Click and wipe. Suddenly, a force of realm came to Qiu Jiu Wang's dark hands were torn apart, just like in the universe starry sky, setting off a picture. This is the strongest extinction of King Jiujia. Once in the war with Jian Wushuang, he was just a framework. But now, this trick has been fully matured. Jian Wushuang has improved tremendously over the past tens of thousands of years. Countless dazzling immortals fall, mountains and mountains are rising, and stars are flickering. In this kingdom of God, flowers, birds, and beasts swim, rivers and rivers flow, and they become a world. The 9 calamities king is like the in charge of the world. From beginning to end, he turned his sword to Wushuang. Even though he was stained with white blood, he never stepped back even if he was facing the 2 top extremes. He didn't talk much, but it was a manifestation of boundless domineering. Immediately afterwards, the king of the 9 dragons dragged him violently, dragging the green dog supreme and Long Qing directly into the world of Godland. Taking a deep breath, Jiujia Wang looked back behind him, and was breaking through the supreme swordmaster, but his original pale face slowly swelled a smile, as if to himself, "The sword is unparalleled. I cannot see many people in my life. You count me as one. If I die, you take care of the temple of life for me. If I do not die, you and I will fight again." With that said, the king of Jiujia turned around resolutely, plunging into the mind of God with a determined attitude. Although this is going to die, don't regret it. This is the way of the king of hell. Who dares to hurt the sword unparalleled half of this big universe, except for the king of 9? He who can't defeat the sword unparalleled, I will defeat it in 9 jealousies, and he who will not defeat the sword unparalleled in Swordsman, I will kill it. Lao Tianshun, my old Tianchong, I will call it dead. In the kingdom of God, the cold voice of Jijiawang came out. Chapter 4396. At the same time, the thunderbolt on the starry sky finally condensed. This thunder robbery is longer than anyone's supreme thunder robbery, and it will take longer to save. The entire sky was filled with thunderclouds at this moment. The horrible might suppresses all directions, just like the revival of ancient thunder gods, and the world will be punished. One after another, the muffled sounds constantly explode. A gust of wind surged, making a violent whistling sound, scraped on the skin, cut sorely, as if a wind demon growled in his ear. In the distance, some supreme masters who participated in the realization and had not yet left, exclaimed suddenly, "How can this and this thunderous power be so horrible? I remember when I broke through the thunderbolt, it was far less terrifying. I'm afraid the thunderstorm that Jian Wushuang will go through will not be easy." Electricity in the void crackled. Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a fine light flashed through his Zijin pupil. Now, my divine power has been transformed into supreme divine power. As long as I survive thunder, I will truly be supreme. Jian Wu's eyes flickered and he murmured to himself. At this moment he really woke up. Prior to that he had been immersed in the theories of the gods of the universe and was unable to extricate himself, and was striving to break the threshold of supremacy. It is not clear what is happening outside, only vaguely remembering, it seems that someone has been guarding him. Yes. King Nine Calamities? Feeling the remnants of fighting in the void, and opening up the mind of the kingdom of God, the sword's face suddenly changed. The king of Nine Calamities is in danger. He felt that the thought of the 9 calamity kings in God's country had gradually faded. In order to protect him, King Nine Calamity dragged Long Qing and Blue Dog Supreme together with one enemy and two. However, although Jiao Zhuang has a powerful talent, he is only a middle-class Supreme after all. How can he be the opponent of Long Qing and Qing Dog? Long Qing is a half-step invincible Supreme, and is also a dragon race. Although the Blue Dog is only a top Supreme, it has a spear that can perfectly suppress the special life advantage. Long Qing. Blue Dog. Suddenly, the sword unparalleled was smashing, a horrible killing, and surging surged. As soon as he was about to get up and take action, he saw the 9 calamity kings in Goddess country, and he seemed to realize the intention of Jian Wushuang, and his voice was low. Jian Wushuang. You don't care about me, break through the Supreme. If you do not become Supreme, not only you and I will die, but even the Temple of Life will be destroyed. I just heard the news that, except for the great Sun God, the 5 top forces have all attacked the Temple of Life. Jian Wushuang heard the words, and suddenly felt in his heart. Okay, King Nine Robbers, then you hold on. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. He was not a man of pride, and he knew that with his current self, it would not help the battle. Only after experiencing thunderstorms and truly breaking through the Supreme, can we help the building to fall and turn the tide over. Come on then. Jian Wushuang raised his head and looked at the thunder robber from the sky. Bang! A thick red thunder with a thick bucket full of flames, fiercely chopped out of the thunder cloud. 5 elements thunder. This is the 5 elements thunderstorm. Suddenly, a few extremes watching the scene in the distance, the pupils suddenly shrank and whispered. Jiang Wushuang is in trouble. The 5 elements of thunderstorms are intertwined and they are linked together. The power is dozens of times that of ordinary thunderstorms. Click. This Ding Vulcan thunder is extremely fast. At first glance it is still in the sky. The next moment it is severely split on Jian Wushuang. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang issued a groan, the violent force of thunder, and the raging flames, almost instantaneously, tearing his body through a crack. The power of endless thunder and the surging flames ran down the cracks, poured into his body, and destroyed all his internal organs. Break me! Sword Warrior's eyes were hunting, and he urged Chaos Ba to crush the flame thunder. If he fails to get the Chaos Overlord, this Ding Vulcan thunder is afraid that he will be hit hard in an instant. But now, after he awakens the Chaos Overlord, the body is 10 million times stronger than before. Seeing a breathing time, the crack on his body recovered instantly, leaving only a black mark. And the second Shenlei fell again. Hai Shui Shenlei. This time, Jian Wushuang did not get beaten passively anymore, but turned his right hand directly to use the Wu Weeping Sword. Open heaven! A blood-colored Jianmong was cut out by the sword unparalleled and hit the Hai Shui Shenlei fiercely. This sword traversed a beautiful arc in the air, immediately in midair, and slammed hard against the Hai Shui Shenlei. Click. The Hai Shui Shenlei collapsed, and Kai Tian Jianmong also shattered. It seemed that he felt the meaning of Jian Wushuang's resistance, and this thunderstorm seemed to be angry and make a loud noise. Suddenly, Atsuki Thunder and Bingtu Shenlei split from thunderclouds at the same time. Between heaven and earth it was incandescent lighted by electricity for a while. Good job! Jian Wushuang saw this, his expression was slightly dignified. Chopper stars! Wu Yi Chao Ding! Jian Wushuang first cut a Mori blue swordsman at will, smashed the Otami god thunder, and immediately turned it over with his right hand, again took out the Wu Ding Chao Ding, and rammed it towards the Bingtu Shunlei. Hey! A loud explosion came out, and a huge cloud of mushrooms rose. The Wu Ding Chao Ding flew back and fell into the sword without hands, and the clay god thunder was also crushed every inch. Last one. Jian Wushuang looked up to Lei Jie. In his eyes, the mango skyrocketed by 3 inches. Among the 5 elements, Gung Jin's killing is also the most aggressive 5-element spirit. This final of thunder will definitely surpass any previous of thunder, even the sum of their might. Rumble! I saw the silver snakes flying through the thunderclouds, and the murderous power suddenly spread out. This Gingjin Lei Wei has the greatest energy. I don't know if Sword Wushuang can take it. Jiang Wushuang is really a monster, and the 5 elements of God Thunder will be replaced by anyone. I'm afraid they won't be able to get through easily, but it seems that it is not difficult to deal with Jian Wushuang. Boom! Among the many discussions, a thick golden thunderbolt embracing a tree was blasted from the endless thundercloud. This golden of thunder is extremely powerful, just like the thunderous roar of the thunder. Sound alone is deafening. At this moment, everything between heaven and earth is replaced by this golden thunder. Come! Jian Wushuang laughed loudly, and the black hair plummeting to the heels flew up, and the whole bodice pattern was bright. In the face of this Gungjin Shenlei, he actually did not retreat, took a step forward, and took the initiative towards this Gungjin Shenlei. Chapter 4397. Huh! Jian Wushuang's two-handed Jin Guangkankan grabbed Gingjin Shunlei directly and pulled it hard. In an instant, countless electric light burst. Jian's face was covered with incandescence, and the purple chuan in the middle of his eyebrow became even more dazzling. Those electric snakes slammed on Jian Wushuang, just like iron nails hitting a steel plate, making crackling noises and splashing countless sparks. How can this and this deity be so strong? It's against the sky. In the distance, those who have not left, the pupils shrink. They can practice to become supreme, and their eyesight will not be poor. In their eyes, Jian Wushuang's deity is like an innocent treasure, without any regrets, and there is no opportunity for the Gingjin Shunlei to have any opportunity. You know, this Gingjin Shunlei, even if they cannot easily take over. 5 elements thunderstorm, but that's it. Jian Wushuang stood in the air and laughed loudly. The muscles of his arms curled up, and he actually opened his mouth and shoved the Gingjin Shunlei into his mouth. After the Gingjin Shunlei was swallowed, it suddenly exploded like a cannonball in Jian Wushuang's body. The sword Wushuang just twisted the chaotic domineering body and completely smashed the Gingjin Shunlei. Chaos Overlord can be said to be the first of all ages. In front of Chaos Overlord, the 5 elements thunder is not enough. As Gingjin Shunlei was swallowed up by the sword Unparalleled, the sword Unparalleled body became more and more brilliant. Actually, suddenly thunder? Is that human being? It was the first time I saw someone crossing a minefield and I directly swallowed the minefield. In the distance, countless supremes were dumbfounded and shocked to say nothing. For the first time, they found out that thunder can still be done like this? Jian Wushuang fell from the air, and his negative hand looked at the thunderous cloud. Theoretically, the 5 elements thunder robbed the 5 god thunders, and after they had passed through, the thunder should dissipate. However, the thunderstorm hanging above Jian Wushuang's head, instead of dissipating, he became more and more condensed. The dark cloud overwhelmed the city, and the thunderstorm was so heavy that it seemed like the sky would fall down. An intimidation of countless times more than before came suddenly to the audience. What happened? Suddenly, Jian Wushuang frowned. Many extremes in the distance were even more suspicion. Isn't the 5 elements thunderstorm over? Why hasn't this thundercloud dissipate? Yeah, this thunderstorm is so abnormal. Since ancient times, I have never heard of Lei Jida's unbroken life. Rumbles. At this moment, the thunderous thief, which was located at a high altitude, made a roar that shook the heavens and the earth like the anger of the heavenly man. In this roar, the sound directly turns into substance, rolling around and spreading, smashing the endless void directly. Countless thick bowls of thunderous electric snakes shuttled in the dark clouds, which was horrifying to the extreme. This is the real thunderstorm. Thunderstorm is coming. Suddenly, countless supreme horror sounded. Only then did they really understand that the 5 elements thunder calamity was just an appetizer, and the real thunder calamity was in front of them. Suddenly, the vision suddenly changed. I saw in the countless thunderclouds, the avenue evolved, chaos emerged, and the dragons and phoenixes emerged in imagination, circling and shouting. Among the thunderclouds, it seems that there are 9 days giants holding thunder hammers in their hands and staring at the sword unparalleled, wanting to put him in deadly. Thousands of thunderous explosions blew up, sending out a muffled sound, as if a gold-armored soldier was drumming a drum in the ancient heaven court. Every sound of the sound made the people tremble. Immediately, I saw countless 5-element thunder condensed from all directions, and finally continued to distort and breed, fuse together, forming a black thunder like the whip of Thunder God. After the condensation of this black thunder, a chaotic breath that spread through the ancient times spreads in all directions. In the distance, many supreme faces who feel this breath have changed, and they say and believe it. This is Chaos God Thunder. Chaos Thunder, the first thunder calf that has been recognized ever since. Chaos, thunder and thunder have always been passed on to legends. I never thought that there would be chaos, thunder and thunder in this world. This chaotic thunderstorm is too strong, even my top supreme can't support it. How can Jian Wushuang survive it? Is sword unparalleled, want to die in this chaotic thunderstorm? Reversing the sky. It's too reversing the sky. Jian Wushuang is afraid that it will be the first master to attract chaos, thunder and thunder from all ages. Click and wipe. The power of thunderclouds is still constantly strengthening, as if the calamity of the heavens and the calamity, and everything under thunderclouds is turned into nothingness. Under this coercion, even Zhu Jiawang's thought of the kingdom of God could not be maintained, and it shattered. The 3 figures fled, and saw King Jiujie's face waxed yellow. A white shirt was covered with blood marks like plum petals, and the deity was extremely weak. An Long Qing and Blue Dog Extreme are also not much better. A dragon scale has been peeled off a few pieces and another destroying spear has been broken. King of the 9th calamity, you it? Long Qing's murderous flickered in his eyes, and he looked surprised and angry at King Zhujia's eyes. The King of 9 Kings ignored him, but looked at Jian Wushuang with a frown. This is Chaos Thunderstorm? He narrowed his eyes and his face changed slightly. You know, he is also a perfect chaotic creature, but when he crosses the robbery, it is only a colorful thunderbolt. Compared with this chaotic thunderbolt, is it just a little bit worse? At the same time, Long Qing and Blue Dog Supreme also noticed this scene. Not good. Jian Wushuang is about to cross over. Long Qing's pupils shrank, and they were about to move. Then saw the Blue Dog Supreme grabbed him. Blue Dog, what do you mean? Long Qing wondered. Long Qing, this is Chaos Thunderstorm. The Blue Dog Supreme stared at the thundercloud above Jian Wushuang and said solemnly, Chaos Thunderstorm? Long Qing didn't respond for a moment, and after a little recall, her face suddenly changed. What? Turns out to be Chaos Thunder. The boy Wu Jinshuang has caused Chaos Thunder? He whispered in his mouth, and then seemed to think something, and the corner of his mouth opened a laugh. Ha ha, this boy, Jian Wushuang, is dead this time. Really helped me too. The Blue Dog's extreme mouth also pulled a smile and nodded. Yes, chaotic thunderstorms are rare forever. It is the most powerful thunderstorm among all thunderstorms. Even if I am waiting, I dare not say that I can survive it. Is sword unparalleled? Ha! During their discussion, the black of thunder finally saved up and blasted down towards the sword unparalleled. Suddenly, the wind demon roared and the thunder roared. The entire universe was blind, leaving only the black thunder that was moving. Chapter 4398. At this moment, the violent wind blew the sword Wushuang's full black hair, and he looked at the chaos thunder with a dignified expression. The chaos god thunder had not yet fallen, and the overwhelming coercion fainted him, and he began to tremble. In front of this thunder, he was almost as small as the ants looking at the sky. This chaos thunder is far from comparable to the previous 5 elements thunder. Broken! Jian Wushuang drank aloud, his body was full of golden light, the blood was boiling, the purple eyes in his eyes became more and more dazzling. Ha! In the face of this thunder, he stepped on his feet, and the whole man went backwards, punching him on the thunder. Boom! A huge explosion exploded, and saw the figure of Jian Wushuang, like a broken kite, crossing an arc in the air and falling to the ground severely. Just of thunder, sword, unparalleled defeat. I saw his dazzling gold body covered with thousands of cracks, like a sticky ceramic doll, which seemed to be broken soon. Ha ha, bang well, blast this sword unparalleled. Long Qing and Green Dog on the side saw the supreme sympathy, and suddenly laughed. The King of 9 Calamities had his eyes narrowed and his heart kept sinking. Just a moment ago, he received a supreme news, prompting him to rush back to the Temple of Life. The Temple of Life, under the pressure of the 5 major forces, was already 100,000 in a hurry. At the moment, Jian Wushuang is facing chaos, thunder, and a life of 9 deaths. Ahem! Jian Wushuang coughed and coughed, as if he was coughing, and a smoky black smoke was spit out by Jian Wushuang. He took a deep breath, turned his gaze to Long Qing and Blue Dog Supreme, and asked coldly, "Do you think it's funny?" Long Qing and Green Dog Supreme heard the words, and they felt more funny in their hearts. They looked at each other and shook their heads and said, "The sword is unparalleled, and the sins of the sky are unforgivable?" But in the sky, a second chaos thunder gradually accumulated. Power is better than the previous point. Jian Wushuang looked up at the thunder in the sky, and then looked at Long Qing and Qing Dog Supreme again, and the corners of his mouth gradually opened a shadow of sneer. Long Qing and Qing Dog Extreme looked at Jian Wushuang, who had a bad look on his face, and for some reason, he felt a sudden shock in his heart. "Jian Wushuang, what do you want to do?" Long Qing pretended to ask calmly. "What? You said you were going to kill me?" With a sneer, Jian Wushuang sneered, sprinting towards Long Qing and Blue Dog Extreme. The chaotic thunderbolt on the top of Jian Wushuang's head moved as the sword Wushuang moved. "No. The little thief, Jian Wushuang, wants to take us to accompany him with thunderstorm." Suddenly, the Green Dog Supreme scalped numb and shouted. Long Qing also looked dumb. Thunder Jie has no active consciousness, it will only lock on Jian Wushuang, while others appear within the range of Thunder Jie. Thunder Jie will only act as sword Wushuang's secret magical powers, etc., to carry out indiscriminate attacks. Rumbles. As Jian Wushuang rushed to the side of Long Qing and Blue Dog Supreme, it had already been formed, and the Chaos God Thunder that was about to split against Jian Wushuang suddenly condensed again into 3, and the power did not weaken at all. Turned towards Long Qing and Blue Dog Extreme, they also split. Damn it! Long Qing roared and looked at the chaos of the chaos, and had to arbitrarily lift his scalp and shake his hands away. The Blue Dog Supreme is a quick seal of his hands, and he is constantly performing supreme divine magic to fight against this chaotic of thunder. Ha! 3 god thunders split at the same time. Jian Wushuang once again took out the Wu Ding Chaos tripod, extracted the air of Hongmeng Chaos, and ran into the Chaos God Thunder. Boom boom. I saw 3 shocking collision sounds. After the 3 Chaos Gods' thunder, the sword of Wushuang, Long Qing, Blue Dog Supreme 3, were all severely dropped. Jian Wushuang and Long Qing are better. After all, one is Chaos Overlord, the other is Dragon, and the physical body is the top level of the universe. Except for the boiling of blood and the bursting of the body, it has not reached the point of great vitality. The Blue Dog was terrible. Numerous mysteries were directly bombarded by a thunder, smashed on the body severely, opened his mouth and spit out endless blood. His face was instantly pale and crumbling. Crazy! This is a lunatic. Jian Wushuang wants to pull us all together. The blue dog was screaming, shouting loudly. The next moment he turned around and shot towards the distance. Long Qing wiped away the faint gold blood that overflowed from the corner of his mouth, and after looking at Jian Wushuang sternly, he was also far away. This chaos thunder is better than one. God knows how many thunders will come again. What will the power to achieve? Seeing this scene in the distance, some supremes suddenly shook their bodies and immediately hurried back, for fear that Jian Wushuang was about to drag a few people on his back before he died. Want to escape? Don't you want to watch how we die? Why don't you watch? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, sneered at the corner of his mouth, and as soon as he stepped, he would chase towards the two of Long Qing and Qing Dog Supreme. This chaotic thunderstorm is too horrible. He is not sure whether he can survive this thunderstorm. If it would really fall into this thunderstorm, it would be better to put Long Qing and Qing before dying. The two dogs are pulled together. Just as he was about to catch up, the voice of King Jiujia suddenly sounded in his mind. Jian Wushuang, here is not far from the Temple of Life. You and I quickly return to the Temple of Life. Okay. Jian Wu's body shook slightly and turned to look at King Jiujia, saying, What happened to the Temple of Life? The king of Jiulong took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, The sword is unparalleled. Now the 5 forces besiege the Temple of Life, and the Temple of Life is at stake. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang trembled in his right hand and immediately took a deep look at Long Qing and Qing Dog Supreme, no longer chasing, but flickering, rushing towards the Temple of Life. Above him, the Chaos Thunderbolt moves. King Jiujia looked at Lei Jie above his head, Jian Wushuang flying away, a smile on his mouth. This chaotic thunderstorm, if it joins the battlefield, it will be a big surprise, right? The next moment, King Jiujia didn't hesitate, and as he stepped, he chased in the direction of the Temple of Life. Far away. The blue dog supreme with a look of astonishment and Long Qing with a gloomy face stood in a void. Long Qing, looking at it like this, Jian Wushuang seems to want to bring thunder robbery to the battlefield of Life Shrine. What should we do? The blue dog supreme asked ugly. The current Shrine of Life is facing the strangulation of 5 major forces. The supreme on the battlefield is afraid that he has more than his hands and feet combined. Once Jian Wushuang took the Chaos Thunder, what would it be? Dozens of supremes cross at the same time? Just thinking about it, Green Dog Supreme felt a scalp tingling. What else can we do? Go to the battlefield of Life Shrine. Long Qing's face was cloudy and uncertain. Chapter 4399. At the same time. Battlefield in the Temple of Life. Spaceships hovered in front of the gate of Life Shrine, unable to see their heads. Dozens of supreme people stepped on the deck and stood on their feet without saying a word. Although they have not spoken, the powerful breath has been exhausted, which is enough to suffocate. Leading it was a young man with twin horns on the head and white scales on his cheeks. He may seem young, but everyone knows that the dragon family named Longbai is actually an old monster who has already passed thousands of chaos ages. He was also the twin brother of the 3 generations of dragon clan Long Yu who participated in the Battle of the Life Shrine tens of thousands of years ago. Not long ago, he broke through the invincible supremacy and was responsible for leading the dragons this time to come and settle on the Temple of Life. This is my first battle to break the invincible supreme, and it is this battle that will make my name in the universe. Long Bai's eyes flashed with excitement, and he waved his right hand forward and sneered, Kill! Suddenly, dozens of dragons behind him turned into bodies and smashed towards the Temple of Life. Beside him, Bingyu Supreme, Qiang God Emperor, and Lord of the Blood Temple, seeing the same flashes of light, led the disciples of their respective forces towards the Temple of Life. For a moment, the void in front of the Shrine of Life was filled with black masters and dominated by all ranks. In this battle, the 5 major forces sent a total of more than 20 supremes, of which Long Baixio was the highest, but was the first to enter the Invincible Supreme, and the Bingyu Supreme and the Qiang Emperor were slightly inferior, ranking Invincible Extreme, and the Lord of the Blood Temple is the top extreme. This lineup is not small, and it is not weaker than the 6 major forces that year, besieging the Battle of the Temple of Life. On the other hand, there is the Palace of Life. Gave Supreme fell asleep, the White Tiger Supreme died, and the Giant Axe never recovered from serious injuries. No one can say how much combat power he can have. Gate of Life Shrine. Bloodwave Supreme, Giant Axe Supreme, and Heavenly Supreme, the 3 Chief Supremes stand side by side. Behind them, 7 Junior, Middle, and Senior Supreme followers. A total of 10 Supreme. This is all the fighting power that the Shrine of Life can take out now. Master Bloodwave, I just received the news that the guy of the Black Feather has led the Diwu Temple to intercept the reinforcement of the Starry Sword Sect. I'm afraid the Starry Sword Sect will not be able to arrive for a while. An ordinary Supreme said bitterly behind him. Master Shiebwa, I just received a rumor from the Jyoti Pavilion. I have previously said that the Great Sun God Kingdom, who is no longer involved in the war, was also led by the Great Emperor, blocking the Jyoti Pavilion outside the Universe Passage. The other side is ordinary and supreme, with an ugly expression. Bloodwave Supreme heard the words, could not help but fell into silence. The 2 major aid forces have been cut off. This time, the 6 major power agencies are exhausted, and the Temple of Life will be completely dead. It can be said that the vitality of the Temple of Life has been completely cut off. It wasn't until a long time before Supreme Master Xie took a deep breath. Looking at the next to the Heavenly Supreme asked, Heavenly, how about the passage in the shrine that leads to the edge of the universe? Tianxuan Supreme nodded and heard Shinshin said, Blood, that channel has been tested and is almost stable enough to convey the disciples to the edge of the universe, and I have sent someone there ready to respond. Bloodwave Supreme heard the words, a smile of relief appeared on his face. That's good, as long as they are still there, the roots of the Temple of Life are still there, and one day, they will come back again. What he called the Cosmic Channel was their last hand. Once the Shrine of Life was broken, that Cosmic Channel was enough to withstand any monk below the Supreme, left the Shrine of Life, and transmitted to the edge of the universe. Big Axe, how are you doing? Bloodwave Supreme looked sideways at the giant axe next to him, and asked with some worry. Haha, Bloodwave, I don't need you to worry, even if I die today, I won't make them feel better. The giant axe laughed loudly and raised the sky-opening giant axe in his hand. There was no fear at all, but he went straight to the sky. It is good. Bloodwave Supreme laughed likewise. This is the end of the matter. There are no more fetters. There is nothing to worry about. Big Axe, heaven, I'm waiting for death war. Huh. He stepped forward in blood waves, raised his head and looked at the multitude of Supremes flying from the sky. His eyes were filled with murder. Kill. Bloodwave Supreme spit out a word coldly, and immediately pulled it with his right hand to draw a rolling river of blood, wrapped in supreme power, and rushed away first. Only death battle. The giant axe yelled, turned into a huge giant, raised the giant axe of heaven, and chopped down towards a dragon tribe. Come, kill me! He roared violently, and every step was a roaring muffled sound. The giant axe in his hand released a sharp axe light, just like the ancient great god, splitting Hongmengchos and exhausting the turbid air, to open up the world. Wei, dead war. Tina Supreme looked indifferent and mumbled to himself. He slowly pulled back with his right hand, and a whole-body scarlet arrow was automatically condensed on the arch of the sun-stretching bow, aimed at a top-level Supreme, and shot instantly. The 3 chiefs of life shrine die out. Behind the 3, the 7 ordinary Supremes also each broke out the strongest power, transformed into several streamers, and killed the Black Dragon Alliance forces. From the beginning, the war fell into the most intense state. At the same time, in the Temple of Life, a sky-like black light mirror reflected in the sky above the Temple of Life. What is playing inside the mirror is the picture of war outside the Temple of Life. All disciples of the Life Shrine, including the Wu Dao Healing, are now gathered under the Shuangguang mirror, clenching their fists and staring at the Shuangguang mirror. The Temple of Life is their home. Okay, guys, quickly go inside the tunnel and prepare to teleport. A muffled sound came out of Yenshan. Because he could not move, he was unable to participate in the war outside the shrine. He was left behind and was responsible for the transfer of disciples from the Shrine of Life. At the same time, he is also the last checkpoint of the Life Shrine, guarding the last gate for the Life Shrine. Once the Bloodwave Supreme and others fall and the Temple of Life is broken, he will be here to keep the last line of defense. However, there is silence in the Temple of Life. No one left. They clenched their fists tightly without moving their feet. What are you doing? Yenshan's voice thickened. I saw a shrine disciple who clicked his teeth. Extreme Yenshan, the Temple of Life is my home. The home is gone. What's the point of my life? That's right. Instead of sneaking away, let's die. I'll wait and die with the Temple of Life. For a while, the sentiment in the Temple of Life was intense, and the voice of coexistence and death with the Temple of Life resounded through the sky, shaking the earth. Chapter 4400. I saw a towering mountain, and the face of Yenshan Supreme saw this scene, and he could not help showing his emotions. A warm current flows through him. As the saying goes, the tree is falling apart, and the calamity is flying. But how lucky is the Temple of Life to have such a group of disciples who are willing to die together? The Temple of Life may not be the most powerful force in the universe, but this alone is far from being comparable to other top forces. Taking a deep breath, Yenshan Supreme let his face sink and scolded, "Don't be fooled. Bloodwave Supreme, but they are using their lives to earn you time. If you don't leave, that Bloodwave Supreme wouldn't it have been sacrificed for nothing?" The voice dropped. Yenshan Supreme's tone slowed a little and continued, "Listen well, you are the roots of the Temple of Life. As long as you do not die, even if the Temple of Life is destroyed today, I believe that it will still be able to come back and revive the temple. But if you die, the Temple of Life is really dead." In the end, the sound of Yenshan Supreme has been like a squeak of the heavens, drinking and deafening. As soon as this word came to an end, there was a dead silence in the Palace of Life, leaving only a heavy gasp. Yenshan Supreme said, "Have they never understood? Extreme Yenshan, look at it for a while, and we will leave after a while." A shrine female disciple bit her lower lip, her eyes full of resentment. Yenshan Supreme heard the words and had to sigh, and agreed to this request. Outside the Palace of Life. "Ah, I am destined to become famous in this battle." Long Bei's eyes sparked with sparks of excitement, constantly commanding many powerful men on the battlefield, strangling the Bloodwave Supreme and others. The Supreme of the Temple of Life cannot be described as strong, because each one is a special life. It has exploded several times in the same realm. The Bloodwave Supreme firepower is fully open, suppressing the Ice Cream Supreme bombardment. The giant axe is facing the Qiang Emperor, and each axe carries the power of Kai Tian, pressing the Qiang Emperor under him. The Heavenly Supreme is also unwilling to be outdone. To the Lord of the Blood Temple, every arrow fired can precisely lock the erratic body of the Heavenly Temple Lord and force him back again and again. And the 7 ordinary Supremes also have strength far beyond the same realm, often with one enemy, even 3. However, if this is allowed, they are still suppressed and retreated. There is no reason for him. There are too many strong men dispatched this time. In addition to the more than 20 supreme powers, there are also hundreds and thousands of ultimate dominators. They come together, set up battle formations, and turn into war giants, united in no way to the Supreme. At the end of the crossbow, Long Bai put out his tongue and licked the corner of his mouth, shaking his head in disdain. There is no need for him to take part in this war, he just needs to stand here quietly and sit in the audience. Bloodwave, we can't hold it for long. One more shot from the Heavenly Supreme will prepare to slaughter the ordinary Supreme Bloody Temple Master, and pant a little bit. How long can we persist, at least for our disciples, all safely transferred? In the eyes of Supreme Bloodwave, the murderous light flickered, and at his feet it turned into a sea of corpse blood, containing the power of the horrible laws, suppressing the Iceberg Supreme. Okay, I see. Tina Supreme took a deep breath and stopped talking. Rumble. On the battlefield, All the magical powers that destroyed the heavens and the earth were launched, destroying everything. Various kinds of power burst out, such as sword chi, sword on, and mystery, surging up, like the scene of extinction. Time slowly wandered, and after an ordinary supreme was killed by a common person on the side of the life shrine, the already life-threatening shrine was once more dangerous, and the situation became more dangerous again. The three chief supreme leaders who still had the upper hand had been attacked by other extreme sieges. The pressure suddenly increased and the situation reversed. Hang them down completely. When Longbai saw this, he laughed cruelly. Huh? All dragons are turned into bodies, spit out dragon balls, and destroy everything. Suddenly, there was another casualty on the side of the Temple of Life. Let's die together. An ordinary supreme who was seriously injured was dying. When he saw the three supremes who came to his death, his eyes showed madness, and at this moment he chose to explode. For a moment, the scene was magnificent. Huh! Another two ordinary shrines of the Life Shrine have chosen to explode, as if playing a tragedy. Dead to me. The giant axe's chest bleeds blood, and when she sees it, she is completely insane, and under the scream of a terrible roar, she divides the three seniors into a slag. And the Qiang Emperor finally seized the opportunity, and in the flash of his eyes, he directly smashed the Supreme Axe onto the Great Axe Supreme, almost tearing the Great Axe Supreme body. Inside the Temple of Life. When many disciples of Life Shrine saw this, their faces were filled with sadness. The more female disciples couldn't help soaking their noses and choking. Okay, you guys should go? Yenshan Supreme said hoarsely. He knew that Bloodwave Supreme and others could not hold on for long, and it was time for him to meet the enemy. Many disciples heard silence, turned silently, and walked toward the passage to the edge of the universe. Although there is more perseverance, more anger, more sadness, and more humiliation, they know that it is true, as Lord Yenshan said, that as long as they stay, the Temple of Life will not be truly destroyed. They can't let people like Bloodwave Supreme sacrifice for nothing. Flip-flop. At this moment, their footsteps were as heavy as a mountain, and their chests were a bit breathless as if they were pressing a stone. Just when someone was about to step into the entrance of the passage, almost everyone turned away from the Shuangguang mirror. Suddenly, a shrine disciple seemed to notice something. First, he gave a flick, and then extended his finger toward the Shuangguang mirror, and then panicked. Look, what's that? Okay. Everyone heard the words, could not help turning their heads in doubt, and looked at the position of the Shuangguang mirror pointed by the shrine disciple. I saw the edge of the battlefield mapped by the scotopic mirror. A mysterious young man covered with mysterious runes, with cold purple eyes and black hair hanging from his head to the heels, is facing a vast thunderstorm and sprinting towards the battlefield. His speed is extremely fast. Every step is taken out of a distance of thousands of miles, like a horizontal thunder between heaven and earth. He glowed with dazzling golden light, as if he had stepped out of the immortal in the middle of 9 days, and in the next moment, he resolutely crashed into the turbulent battlefield in an extremely overbearing posture. Boom boom. Suddenly, countless horrible black chaos gods of thunder descended from the thunderstorm, transforming the entire battlefield of Life Shrine into a thundering prison. This man is Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang is back. Suddenly, the disciples of Life Shrine, who were about to leave, all stopped at the same time, shaking wildly and in an uproar. Chapter 44:01. Outside the Palace of Life. The battlefield is changing rapidly, but in general, the situation is almost one-sided. Compared to the quartet, the 10 Supreme Masters of Life Shrine are too difficult to cope with. The 3 chief Supremes of the Supreme Axe, and the Greatest have all suffered injuries of varying severity, all relying on hard support at the same time, while the other 7 ordinary Supremes have been damaged, leaving 4 remaining. The Supreme Master is struggling to support, but it can be expected that the fall is also a matter of time. Blood, God, I'm afraid I have to take a step first. The great axe had already been seriously injured and healed most of the firepower on the battlefield. At this moment, the huge body of the was full of marks of the sword and axe, and his chest was severely torn by the Lord of the Blood Temple. The dark toxin burned the body, making it impossible to recover. Just when he was about to explode, suddenly, a huge thunder roar came from afar. Immediately afterwards, I saw an incandescent light, which was still 1,000,000 miles away at first, but a small light spot. But the next moment, the pupils dilated in everyone's eyes. Okay. Everyone noticed this scene. They couldn't help but stop for a moment and looked in wonder. Including the dragon cypress sitting behind the town, he frowned and said, "Who is this?" He hasn't allowed much thought. Long Qing's crackling voice blew in his ear. "Uncle San, let them retreat." Long Qing? Although Long Bai did not understand what it meant, he also knew that Long Qing would not miss the target, and he was ready to let the quartet's coalition forces retreat first. However, just when he was about to speak, the electro-optic figure who was bathed in the thunder and hijacked above him had already crashed into the crowd. "Let's cross together." On the battlefield, some Supremes still didn't respond initially and asked blankly, What is this?" Next moment, "This is thunderous." A Supreme frightened voice, "Turn around and run away." Many other Supremes were trembling with fright, and they also turned to flee by performing mysteries. However, it's too late. Boom boom. The power has condensed to dozens of chaos thunders and chopped down fiercely. Suddenly, the entire Thunder Palace battlefield turned into a purgatory thunder pool. This is chaos thunder. Damn, it's the sword thief who's back. He came back with Thunderbolt. He is going to drag us together. Suddenly, the entire battlefield of the Life Shrine came with wailing and screaming and the roar of the dragons. I saw a chaos thunder, the battle formation giant formed by hundreds of thousands of ultimate domination, directly collapsed and turned into ashes. A medium supreme agitation of the whole Bodhis divine power, wanting to shake the thunder, but after a thunder was split, the same flies away, and the dead can't die anymore. The scene was spectacular to the extreme. The chaotic thunderbolt on the top of Jian Wushuang thought that these supreme were the helpers invited by Jian Wushuang. Immediately, the thunder broke out, and dozens of horrible chaos gods of thunder were formed. Numerous chaotic thunders with thick waists fell like heavy artillery shells and bombarded wildly. It was learned earlier that the Blood Evacuation Supreme and others who had evacuated the news were located on the edge of the thunderstorm, staring at this scene with stunned eyes, and the whole person was petrified. "Sword, Jian Wushuang, did you bring back Thunder Robber?" said the Blood Wave Supreme. "This is Chaos God Thunder. They're done." The giant axe gasped with great sigh, but laughed heartily. Boom boom. After a wave of thunder, the rest of the people on the battlefield are not alive. Except for some of the powerful Supreme and Top Supreme who survive, all others have fallen. The battlefield, which was still so black, suddenly became lonely, 2 or 3 kittens. Even those who survived by chance were miserable to the extreme, their bodies were scorched, and their heads shed. This thunderstorm is not over. Run away. A high-ranking Supreme was hesitant. Where could he care about stepping into the Temple of Life, and seeing the thunder robbed by Jian Wushuang's head position, he began to consolidate the power again, scaring the 3 souls out of his head and leaving at the first step. However, he had just stepped out of the thunder zone. First calamity, great destruction. Second calamity, big suppression. Third calamity, rhubarb Kuan Yin. The 9th calamity, the Great Sky Seal. A cold voice exploded. The King of 9 robbers attacked from the other side with white blood. There are a total of 9 visions covering the sky, carrying a variety of visions, rolling across the sun and the moon, cutting off the sky, directly blocking all the way back, and will kill the many Supreme Masters who want to escape. Jian Wushuang and Jiujie Wang, one is responsible for leading the group with thunder, and one is responsible for the damage in the back. Although there is no communication, but the cooperation is extremely tacit understanding. After I saw them, they swept across the hall and killed the Dragon Alliance. Huh! When the last chaos thunder fell, the battlefield of Life Shrine fell into silence. Nearly 1,000,000 miles of void have turned into nothingness. On the side of the quartet, apart from Bingyu Supreme, Qiang Emperor, Lord of the Blood Temple, and several top supremes, everyone else is gone. A wind kept echoing. Long Bai looked at the scene blankly. His heart was bleeding, his body was shaking. Gone? That's it. All gone? Roar! The next moment, Long Bai was screaming and roaring. This was the first war he led, and it was also a war in which he thought he would become famous and famous in the universe. However, everything has vanished. Sword unparalleled. You it. Long Bai's eyes widened, and he looked at Xiang Wushuang stubbornly, with hate in his eyes. Uncle San. Senior Cypress. At this time, Long Qing and Blue Dog Extreme arrived. Long Qing, how did you tell me before? You said that the sword is unparalleled, but you are not the enemy of your finger, and you will kill him. This is what you said? He came with thunder, why don't you tell me in advance? Long Bai opened his big hand, grabbed Long Qing's collar tightly, and squeezed this sentence out of his teeth. Long Qing looked at Long Bai, who was iron blue and caught in the edge of anger, and could not help but tremble. 3. Uncle, didn't I tell you just now? Long Qing bowed her head reply. Long Bai stared at Long Qing deadly. His chest continued to rise and fall because of anger. After a long time, he took a deep breath, pushed Long Qing forward, and released his hand and said, Long Qing, this account book will come to you later. After speaking, he turned his head to look at Jian Wushuang. His eyes flashed with murderousness. This sword is unparalleled to destroy many disciples of my dragon clan, and be 1,000 swords. Huh! The next moment he stepped his right foot, and the whole person turned into an extremely fast streamer, reaching out the sharp dragon claws, and grabbing towards Jian Wushuang's head. I saw that he was still far away in the last second, and his figure still kept rushing out. The next moment, he appeared directly above Jian Wushuang's head. Chapter 4402. Central Battlefield. The sword Wushuang panted, and the chaotic domineering body was full of traces of hacks cut by thunder. Fortunately, in his use of dragon blood mystery, at the cost of burning divine power, he finally arrived at the battlefield of Life Shrine at the last moment. He glanced up at the distant Bloodwave Supreme and others. Although his breath was weak and he was injured, but fortunately he did not fall. Seeing this, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Sword unparalleled, you take your life. At this moment, Jian Wushuang's eyelids jumped, only to feel a sudden great courage. I saw a white dragon with a faint face, coming quickly through the stars. He alone surpasses everyone in the audience. Invincible Supreme. Jian Shuang saw this, and could not help sinking in his heart. And he didn't have much blood, such as supreme blood, and others also noticed this scene, and his face suddenly changed. Not good. Swordsman is dangerous. The Bloodwave Supreme, the Great Axe Supreme, and others immediately stepped forward, rushing towards the sword unparalleled, blocking the dragon and Cypress. The Heavenly Supreme was chilling, and Zhang Gong took an arrow and fired the strongest arrow led by his essence and blood. But get out of this seat. Long Bai's grimace, a tear in his right hand, will directly come to intercept his Bloodwave Supreme in huge axe blast, vomiting blood, body shape retreat. The arrow shot by the Emperor Tianxian blasted on Long Bai's body, and it just smashed a small black spot and shattered it. This is the wrath of Long Bai, and the wrath of the Invincible Supreme. Not at all they can resist. In one hit, the 3 chief executives are all defeated. But the good thing is that this gave Jian Wushuang a breath of time. Jian Wushuang first glanced up at the glory of power and was about to drop the thundercloud of chaos god thunder again. He then pulled out the Taro Excalibur and played the Yongye sword directly, dragging Dragon Cypress into Yongye Kingdom. Next breath, 2 explosions came out. The first explosion is that Long Bai directly shatters the kingdom of Yongye, and the second explosion is that of Chaos God Thunder. Bang! Chaos God Thunder is divided into two, all are the thickness of the bucket, one blasts towards the sword unparalleled, and the other blasts towards the dragon cypress. This Chaos Thunder is okay to deal with others, it is not enough to deal with me and other invincible supreme. The dragon cypress stepped out of the kingdom of the night, looking towards him, like the Chaos Thunder of the Thunder God's whip. He screamed directly, emitting a terror sound like no human. Sound waves waved from his mouth, forming a howling sound, shattering the Chaos God Thunder. Wu yi chao chao ding. The sword Wushuang dealt with, it is too difficult. Call out. Wu Xing Chao Ding Ding rose from his sleeve robe to the sky. Countless powerful forces of chaos emerged from the Chaos Ding of Wushu, turned into a dark light group, and hit the Chaos God Thunder. Countless violent forces of thunder exploded, slamming on Wu Chaos Ding. Suddenly, Wu Xing Chao Ding Ding issued a wailing, spinning back to the sword without hands. This Chaos Thunder is stronger than one. After so long, the mighty power has been horrible, and the Wu Chao Chaos is incomplete, and it is not a defense against the offensive extreme Taoism soldiers. It cannot stop the Chaos Thunder at all. Next moment, in the blood-scratched eyes of Supreme Bloodwave and others, Chaos God Thunder and Long Bei's wrath hit successively on Jian Wushuang. Deng! I saw Jian Wushuang's chaotic domineering body shining brightly with golden flames. First, it gave out a crisp sound like a gong, and then the whole domineering body burst open and shattered into countless pieces. This is the first time the sword body has been shattered by Jian Wushuang since it achieved Chaos Overlord. After 3 breaths, Jian Wushuang's chaotic domineering body reunited, but his face turned into a piece of wax yellow, and the whole person was teetering, almost falling from the air. Oh, Overlord? It seems that you guys have something to do with overlords. It really is a great opportunity. Long Bai narrowed his eyes, an inch of coldness was captured in his eyes, and then sneered sneerily, but what about the tyrant? This one is going to kill you today, and no one can stop it. Even if the tyrant's ancestor, the white ape, comes, he can only retreat aside. After speaking, Long Bai once again stretched out the claws of the dragon and grabbed its sword Wushuang. Jian Shuangshuang saw this, his pupils shrank, his heart sank to the extreme. As a result, just now, a deep, thick voice sounded suddenly in the void. You try again? Next moment, a burly figure with a bright sun and white fur all over his body stepped in front of Jian Wushuang. He was expressionless and blasted with a fist. He carried the power of the universe and blasted a paw from Long Bai directly. His breath is similar to Jian Wushuang, but it is much stronger than Jian Wushuang. Patriarch, Patriarch. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang trembled with an unbelievable look on his face. Immediately, there were several sounds from the sky again. Leader, Overlord is late, please forgive me. A figure rushed from the sky, surging blood. It was at the grand event of the universe that broke the Supreme Overlord. Leader, the 9-star Holy Land is late, please forgive me. On the other side, Jiao Xingzi, who joined the Sword Alliance with Overlord in the ancient road of Shinkong. I saw him hunting in a white shirt. Although he didn't break through the Supreme, he was much stronger than when he was in the ancient road of Shinkong. Behind him, several people from the 9 Stars Holy Land followed, among them the supreme level of the old strong man. Leader, Mora is late, please forgive me. A rough voice sounded, and then I saw a barbaric giant with a sharply curved double-headed head and a raging flame, led by the Luo people, striding forward. I haven't seen it for tens of thousands of years. This ancient patriarch of Mo Luo Yen Yen also broke through the Supreme. Farther away. Master Bloodsword, I am here. A chubby monk rushed around in a yellow robe. Behind him, led dozens of ultimate masters. Jian Shuangshuang saw this, and his heart was instantly moved, and his body couldn't help flowing a warm current. Here, the core members of the Sword League that he founded in Shinkong Ancient Road are here. Long Bei's face suddenly became gloomy to the extreme. Instead of controlling the Overlord and others, he stared at the Overlord ancestors, his voice hoarse. White ape, did you choose to be born? The ancestor of the Pa clan had no expression and was too lazy to answer him, but said indifferently, Long Bai, did you just say that even if the husband is here, do you want to step back aside? After a word of speech, the ancestors of the patriarch swelled endlessly and then spoke word by word. If you dare say it again, the old man will kill you now and take it back to stew the soup. You, believe it or not. Chapter 4403, Overbearing. After the resignation of the patriarch's ancestors, an extremely overbearing breath emanated, and the audience was silent. Everyone was staring blankly at the patriarch's ancestors. Long Bai clenched his fists tightly, a pair of snow-white eyes frantically contracted. His face was extremely blue. He didn't doubt the words of the patriarch's ancestors. This lunatic has always been lawless and can do everything. I believe. Finally, Long Bai squeezed this sentence out of his teeth. The patriarch's ancestors heard a scornful smile and said, Long Bai, you are far worse than your elder brother. With this remark, Long Bai's face became more ugly. For a long time, Long Ling was stronger than the dragon family. Although it was a brother relationship, it was a knot in Long Bai's heart. The reason why he took the initiative to invite a battle this time to settle the Temple of Life is to prove that he is more capable than Long Yen. After all, the last time Long Yong settled on the Temple of Life, he failed. Taking a deep breath, Long Bai's eyes first looked at Xiang Jianwushuang, then at White Ape. White Ape, are you sure you want to protect Jian Wushuang? I'll tell you the truth, Jian Wushuang has already been on my Dragon Clan's kill list. You alone can't protect him. Even if Long Bai retires today, there will be other Dragon Clan strongmen coming to the door soon. If it really annoys me and other Dragon Clan, the distant ancestors of the second generation may not be able to wake up and come to the door in person. At that time, what will you stop the White Ape? The patriarch's ancestors heard no change in his expression and replied indifferently, Long Bai, you have too many words. It seems that you really want to become a dragon head soup. You. Long Bai heard that, his face became iron again. A fierce anger was burning in his chest. He is a third-generation dragon and an invincible supreme. When was he so humiliated in the public eye? If it were not for the reason, he told him that he was far from being an opponent of the patriarch's ancestors. White Ape, I admit it this time. After taking a deep breath, Long Bai turned and left. He looked at Long Qing, who was stunned, and suddenly gave him a stern glance, yelling, Waste, do you still want to stay here and be ashamed? After speaking, he rose to his feet and turned into a huge white dragon with a length of thousands of feet. After making a long howl, he shuffled in the void and left the place. Long Qing first unwillingly glanced at Jian Wushuang, then took another look at the patriarch's ancestor, hitting him with excitement. This is a peerless and vicious man who threatened to beat down his three uncles Long Bai and make a faucet soup. His figure also disappeared in the same place. And that blue dog supreme is not so lucky. He lowered his head, pretending that others could not see him, and just wanted to sneak away, and saw King Jiujia standing behind him, holding his shoulders. The voice said quietly, Where do you want to go? He was stiff. On the battlefield of the Temple of Life, there was a silence, only the thunder robbed by Jian Wushuang's head, still making a loud noise. It seemed to be giving birth to a blow to destroy the world. Everyone else stared at Jian Wushuang from afar, his heart rising. The ancestor of the patriarch looked up and glanced at Thunderbolt, then shook his head and said, There are 18 chaotic thunderbolts. One is more dangerous than the other. The last one is the sum of all the power of Thunderbolt before. Wushuang, I'm afraid it will be difficult to survive. Under the thunder, the sword sat cross-legged, his expression dignified. Long Bai and others left, and the crisis at the Temple of Life was lifted. But the crisis of his unparalleled sword really began. He had a hunch in his heart that this would be the last thunderstorm and also the most powerful one. Whether he can survive, he has no idea. Crackling. I saw countless electric snakes among thunderclouds. A loud noise, like a stuffy drum, kept exploding from Thundercloud, which was heartbreaking. Overlord, Jiuxingxingzi and others just felt the shudder and pale when they felt the coercion from Lei Jie. This is not a thunder, this is a catastrophe. Rumble. Above the entire shrine of life, all are filled with billowing clouds. This day covers the sun and annihilates all light. Roar. Finally, the last thunderbolt has condensed. Suddenly, the entire universe is filled with roaring sounds, as if the brass bells are ringing, the dragon skin is beating, the imposing waves of power sweeping the four sides. The universe seems to be in chaos. Click. A black goddess with a width of 100 feet wide dropped sharply. There are countless forks spreading on this black thunder, and it has the evolution of heaven, as if the sky is angry and endless. Coming. Is this the last thing about chaos and thunder? It's terrifying. How could there be such a powerful thunderstorm in the world? Suddenly, countless people set off a huge wave in their hearts, and suddenly lost their voice. Jian Wushuang suddenly looked up at the black thunder, his pupils shrank for a while. This thunderbolt has not yet fallen, and the thunderous thunderbolt has opened thousands of cracks in his body. Break it for me! At this moment of life and death, Jian Wushuang's heart burst into a frenzy of madness, and his face became pale. Chopper Star! He was holding the Taro Excalibur and fiercely hacked at this black thunder. A forest blue swordman that was nearly 10,000 feet long shot from the sword without hands, with an incomparable sharp sword spirit, and slammed into this black thunder. This sword is enough to split the sky gate and shake Kunlun. Ah! A burst of noise spread, and immediately afterwards, I saw the nearly blue forest mang shattered and broke into powder. And the black thunder, once again unhindered. Power is not reduced. Everyone looked at this scene with a tremor in their hearts, but they knew that this thief was destined to be passed by Jian Wushuang himself, and no one could help him. Once Jian Wushuang crosses through, he will walk in peace and stand completely on top of the universe. If Jian Wushuang could not pass, it would be death, and everything would be nothing. Come! Jian Wushuang clenched his teeth. He understood that Guangguang could not stop this chaos thunder with his supernatural power. This chaos god thunder is too powerful. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang doubled his right hand again, and Wu Wei's Excalibur appeared in his hand. Old man, it's up to you this time. There was a tinge of heartache in Jian Wushuang's eyes, and the Wu weapon sword accompanied him to battle the universe. He is undefeated in all battles, and has long been his closest partner. And Wu Wei's Excalibur seemed to sense something, and issued a sword slamming straight towards Zhou Xiao. Chapter 4404, Next moment. Jian Wushuang's black hair flew up, staring up at the vast thunder and screaming loudly, "Explode me!" Ha! Suddenly, Wu Weeping Sword rose into the sky, accompanied by the sharp swordman who shook for 9 days and 10 places, and slammed into Chaos God Thunder without hesitation. Bang! A loud noise spread, and the entire Wu Weeping Sword exploded. Wu Weeping Sword is the ultimate treasure of the universe, and the power under self-detonation is not weaker than a top extreme self-detonation. A huge mushroom cloud rose, and Wu Wei's Excalibur shattered after releasing the last glory, annihilating between heaven and earth. And Chaos God Thunder, the power finally dropped slightly. Old boy! Jian Wushuang's throat was sweet, his blood was spit out, and his body was shaking. Wu Wei's Excalibur accompanied him to the north and south to discuss, and I didn't know how many enemy chiefs' heads had been killed for him. He had already had a connection with him. At the moment he exploded, he felt the same backlash. Come again! Forcibly suppressing the violent blood in God's body, Jian Wushuang raised his head again to look at the chaotic God Thunder that broke down, and yelled, "Boom for me!" In a short time, countless treasures rushed out of the sword-unparalleled Qiankuan ring, and greeted the Chaos God Thunder fiercely. In recent years, Jian Wushuang swept across the ruins of Taro, dominated the ancient road of the sky, and stretched across the wild wilderness of the universe, killing more than 2 hands. After the fall of these people, The various magical materials and top treasures in the Changchuan ring fell into the hands of Jian Wushuang. This is an incredible number. Huh? I saw these top treasures, converging into a long dragon, ramming toward the chaos god Thunder, and then blasting away. Among them, also includes Qingmu Sheizhen's extreme magic weapon, Qinghe Supreme's 7-star magic sword, and so on. And the most expensive thing is that Jian Wushuang slaughtered that High Supreme, 9-claw Mahjong tribe patriarch in the wild wilderness of the universe, and obtained a piece of 9-claw blackfish shield from him. Rumble. Suddenly, dozens and hundreds of universe treasures of different grades exploded. A shocking explosion exploded. It is impossible to use any words to describe the power of these dozens of hundreds of treasures exploding at the same time. At this moment, the entire universe is silent. In the ears of everyone, the sound of discussion could not be heard, but only a loud bang continued to echo. In front of their eyes, a sea of white waves set off, spreading out in a mighty manner, destroying the surrounding starry sky forever. Countless dusts floated and filled the sight. Among the white waves in the sky, a faint color and a lot of chaos gods and thunders, once again covered the thorns, penetrated the white waves, and shot the sword unparalleled. With so many arcane blasts, I still can't stop this chaos thunder. Suddenly, everyone around me couldn't help exclaiming, "This thunderbolt is almost as old as ever. Master Lord is worthy of being Lord. Even the thunderstorms brought in are much stronger than us." This thunder robbery, everyone on the scene, except for the patriarchs, who dare to say 100%. This thunderbolt is too strong, but the stronger one is Jian Wushuang. If I wait for this thunderbolt, I am afraid that I will give up resistance long ago, right? Wow! This last chaos thunder, breaking clouds and mists, swinging all the evil spirits in the world, constantly enlarging in the eyes of Jian Wu's eyes. Although it has been destroyed by a lot of precious treasures, the power has been wiped out a lot, and the thunder, which is nearly 100 feet wide, has also become the thickness of a bowl. However, for Jian Wushuang, there is still a deadly threat. Keep coming. Jian Wushuang's mouth bleeds, and under the power of dozens of hundreds of Arcana's self-explosive powers, the shock wave also reached him, causing his body to shatter. Go with. He first threw the chaos ding of Wushu again and ran into this black thunder, and then stepped hard again without using the sword, and the whole man rose into the sky. In the end, he is going to shake this thunder and sublime it as much as possible. Dang. The Wu Chao Chao Ding carried an unmatched force of chaos and hit the black thunder fiercely. After a while, the black thunder was slightly stagnant and its power was worn away a little. After the Wu Chao Ding wailed, "Fly up." And with the Wu Chao Chao Ding being split and flying, Jian Wushuang and the black god thunder finally collided together. Roar! Chaos thunder roared through the world. Break it for me! Jian Wushuang has a grimace, and his eyes are crazy. No devil can't live. Today is either the destruction of this thunder, or the death of his sword without a pair. Jian Wushuang shot the bright golden light. The flames entwined with the 5 fingers of his hands, and the crisscross patterns of his body continued to light up. In particular, the purple chuan mark on his brows became blood enchanting, and with the purple golden pupils, he really looked like a lingsher. At this moment, the heaven and earth seemed to be divided into 2 halves. Generally, the sword of Wu Jin was full of dazzling gold. On one side, the entire starry sky was plunged into the black thunder of thunder. The 2 forces are glued together and constantly collide, just like 2 semicircular masks, struggling hard. The dark thunder was like a snake on the sword Wushuang deity, and then penetrated into his body, and the violent power continued to tear his deity. A pain in the heart could not help but let Jian Wushuang growl. But Jian Wushuang not only did not retreat, but the meaning of madness in his eyes became stronger. He knows that killing him will make him stronger. Crackling, silver snakes dancing wildly, dark clouds over the city, swordsman within 100 feet around, turned into a horror thunder pond. He was bathed in thunder as if he were the sinful son of the thunder penalty. In the distance, Bloodwave Supreme and others watched this scene intently, saying silently in their hearts, "Sword unparalleled, you must hold on, otherwise all your efforts will be defeated." Others clenched their fists as well. Jian Wushuang, hold on. Huh? I saw the fork on the Chaos God Thunder, which spread again into countless small God Thunders and bombarded wildly towards the sword Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's mouth and nose were overflowing with blood. The whole person was like a blood person. He raised his head and looked at Lei Jie. Instead of being afraid, he laughed wildly. "Don't you just want me to die? Come, then see who we die first." At this moment, Novel. In the sight of Jian Wushuang, Lei Jie is no longer Lei Jie, but a wild monster who wants to put him to death. Boom! As soon as Jian Wu stepped on his feet, his figure soared into the sky again. In the deep laughter, he rushed directly into the depth of the thick sky and thundercloud. "Come, kill me!" Next moment, a sound of explosion came out from Thundercloud. I don't know what happened in Thundercloud. After half a column of incense, Lei Yun slowly began to dissipate. When everyone saw this, they were all in a tight heart, and at the same time they were in doubt. Jian Wushuang finally survived. Chapter 4405. How's it going? Did Jian Shuang survive? Come on. How about Jian Wushuang? Master Lord. Everyone glanced at each other, then swept up and rushed towards the thundercloud that had not completely dissipated. Before they could reach the thundercloud, a bright beam of light suddenly shot out from the thick dark clouds. It was like the first rays of morning light that pierced the dark captivity and returned the light to the earth. Alas! Immediately more and more of this light beam. Until the end, this bright glow violently tears all dark clouds. The entire sky was dyed golden by the halo, just like the sunset on the seashore, and it was magnificent. I saw that above 9 days, Jian Wushuang was wrapped in a golden ball of light. He was completely broken from the broken body and began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. He closed his eyes slightly and spread his hands in a hug. The dazzling glow also dyed every strand of his skin and every hair end into gold. His original appearance was so beautiful under the glow of the sun. Next moment, the stars trembled, the world changed. Endless Xianhui sprinkles from the air, like the beginning of heaven and earth, chaos and dawn, and the air is stirred up. On the sky, Dadao played the music for him, and the thick earth trembled, playing a crossover sacred song, as if congratulating him in Chi-Chi, breaking through the supreme. Today I have no match for the sword, I have sublimated as much as possible, and I have won the supreme avenue. An indifferent voice sounded. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes in a bang. I saw in his purple-golden pupils that countless avenues evolved from the pattern, and the whole person revealed a sacred breath. The divine power in his whole body was mobilized, and the divine power in the supreme avenue changed. His indomitable chaotic domineering became stronger 1 inch at a time. His black hair grew darker. Boom boom. A strong breath, centered on Jian Wushuang, is constantly erupting. This breath is mixed with his charm as a super-perfect chaotic creature. For a moment, there is a sense of subjugation to all the races. Okay, so powerful. Too scary. I have a feeling that today's swords are unparalleled and can crush me to death. Countless Sword League disciples saw this scene. They were shocked to the extreme, feeling the breath of Jian Wushuang's body, even more trembling. However, the more they looked at Jian Wushuang's gaze, the more fanatical worship. In their dazzling eyes, Jian Wushuang seems to be the who controls the life and death of the world. He stepped out of the ancient chaos and once again came to the world, but I have exclusive respect. Including the Bloodwave Supreme, the 9 Kings of Calamity, and the Great Axe Supreme, etc., the eyes are also deeply shocked. The breath of Jian Wushuang, this little guy. I even feel like I'm on my back, I feel a sense of danger. The Great Axe took a deep breath and said in shock. Bloodwave Supreme stood next to him, staring at Jian Wushuang as he watched, and said with a smile, "The giant axe, Now he is not the little guy who needs our protection. After a short pause, Bloodwave Supreme smiled slightly and continued to speak. Now he has grown up. He is a giant arm who can truly stand on his own. The giant axe could not help but hesitated, and then laughed, sighing, "Yeah, time flies." Long ago, Jian Wushuang was only a third-level master, and they needed some protection. Now, unconsciously, Jian Wushuang has become a behemoth enough to shake the universe, and the temple of life-saving is about to fall. The King of Nine Calamities always had a cold smile on his face. "You guy, how can I fight you?" In his entire life, the King of Nine Kings could not see much. Jian Wushuang counted as one, but he felt ashamed for the first time, only Jian Wushuang. Over 9 days, between clouds. The sword was unpaired and the black hair flew. Strands of golden glow continued to pour into him. The supreme divine realm is here. Jian Wushuang felt a different power in his body than before, and couldn't help but smile slightly. Is this the supreme divine realm? He shook his fist. Now he is more than 1,000 times stronger than before. A terror force that has never flowed in his body is the vast power that surpasses the world and sets foot on the top of the universe. Knowing that there was someone waiting for him below, Jian Wushuang didn't make any delays. He was a little familiar with the power in his body, and he stepped forward toward the crowd. I saw that his body didn't seem to move, and the whole person had already appeared in front of Bloodwave Supreme and others. It wasn't until the last few days that after 9 days, the afterimage formed due to the speed was too fast, and then it slowly dissipated. Extreme blood, supreme axe, supreme nature. Jian Wushuang nodded hello to them. Bloodwave Supreme looked at Jian Wushuang and opened his mouth to say something, but in the end, many of the words that had already been drafted were all turned into one word. "It is good." He patted Jian Wushuang's shoulders, his eyes full of comfort and appreciation. Jian Wushuang also didn't say much, and the relationship between the two was also a teacher and friend, and it was no longer clear what warm words could say. Subsequently, Jian Wushuang led the Bloodwave Supreme and others toward the ancestor of the patriarch. "Thank you, Senior White Ape, for help." Jian Wushuang first paid respectfully to the patriarch ancestors. The patriarch ancestors had great gratitude to him. Not only did he save his life, but this time also saved the entire Palace of Life. The Bloodwave Supreme and others have the same expression, and said archly, "Ill wait, Senior White Ape." In theory, the patriarch ancestors rescued them, and in Lili the patriarch ancestors cultivated their existence far beyond theirs, and naturally deserve respect. No need to be polite. The patriarch ancestor shook his head with a hand and groaned, "Speaking of you, the Lord of the Palace of Life Palace, you are still old with the old man. You once helped the old man once. The old man just returned his favor." After hearing the words, Supreme Bloodwave and others suddenly narrowed their pupils and looked at each other, and then asked again, "Council Senior, do you know our master?" They are all people of the same age and naturally recognize. The patriarch nodded. Hearing here, Bloodwave Supreme and others suddenly looked excited, forcibly pressed their inner emotions and asked, "Then, Senior White Ape, do you know where our palace master is now? Is it okay?" The patriarch's ancestors narrowed their eyes and groaned for a while or two, then sighed softly, "The Lord is trapped in that place. I am afraid the situation is not good. I won't be able to return in a short time." Chapter 4406. Is that so? Bloodwave Supreme waited for a moment, and then seemed to remember something, and some of them lost their souls. Jian Wushuang didn't say anything beside him, listening silently. He was always curious about who the Lord of the Palace of Life was, and why it has not appeared. At this moment, listening to the discussion between the Patriarch and the Supreme Bloodwave, he immediately understood that it seemed that the owner of the Palace of Life was trapped in a certain place. Place can't come out. After a while, Jian Wushuang once again introduced the people of the Sword Alliance to Bloodwave Supreme and others. Almost half of the people in the Sword League came this time. According to the Overlord, there are still some remote Sword League disciples on their way. Sword Wushuang naturally will not neglect. First of all, thank you. After discussing with the Supreme Master of Blood, all the people who are helping in the future will be invited to the Palace of Life, and a feast is a thank you. After Jian Wushuang said, Overlord, Maluo Yengu, how Emperor and others were naturally indispensable, and they respected obedience and obeyed the arrangement of Jian Wushuang. However, the ancestor of the Na ancestor, after thinking about it, shook his head and refused, turned and left. Jian Wushuang's heart inevitably has some regrets, but he won't force it. After a period of getting along, he can be regarded as a clear understanding of the paternal ancestor's temperament, free-spirited, unwilling to restrain, and alone. Bloodwave Supreme arranged for the Sword Alliance to enter the Temple of Life, and at the same time, let the Axe Supreme and the Heavenly Supreme go to the Cosmic Passage of the Nine Emperor Pavilion and the Starry Sword Sect to see if they could cooperate with these two forces to bring the Big Sun Emperor and Black Feather Supreme remain. At the same time, it was considered to invite Shinkong Jianzong and Jiodi Pavilion to dinner. After some arrangements, Supreme Master Shui led everyone into the Temple of Life. Inside the Temple of Life, Life Shrine disciples, who have been looking at the Shuangguang mirror and watching the situation on the battlefield, have long waited. Seeing the return of Bloodwave Supreme and Jian Wushuang and others, there was a burst of joy and joy. Supreme Blood. The disciples of Life Shrine said hello to Supreme Master Xie, but more attention was still put on Jian Wushuang. This is Brother Jian Wushuang. Brother Jian Wushuang is really powerful. Some of the new disciples who have entered the Temple of Life and have never seen Jian Wushuang watched Jian Wushuang with admiration. Jian Wushuang smiled and said hello to them. Immediately, he also saw a lot of familiar faces in the crowd of Life Shrine. For example, the Lord of the Winds that had had a dispute with him was not seen for nearly 100,000 years, and he broke through to the level of invincible dominance. His body converges and his eyes have a vicissitudes of life. There is also Wu Deling, who saw Jian Wushuang at the moment, the wrinkled, smiling face like a little old man. The sword without 1,000 swords. Forget it, Uncle Ben forgive you, good job. Jian Wushuang stretched out his hand and held Wu Daoheling's face torn, and immediately stared at that aura. Bloodwave Supreme looked at this scene, and could not help feeling a warm current. This is the Shrine of Life, and this is the home of everyone. For the rest of their lives after the death of the Temple of Life, these disciples naturally did not need to leave anymore. Under the arrangement of Supreme Bloodwave, they returned to their posts one after another, while Yenshan Supreme took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and reformed mountains. After 3 months, the feast was held. The lights in the Palace of Life are full of joy and joy. Now that the Lord of the Palace of Life disappears, and GVV is supremely asleep, he will be led by the Blood Wave to command the Palace of Life. The Giant Axe Supreme and Tian Di Supreme, who are responsible for picking up the Starry Sword Sect and Jiu Di Pavilion, have returned. Behind them are the Jiu Di Pavilion's Heartbreaking Supreme, Red Ear Supreme, and the Wu Jianxian of Starry Sword Sect. It is more regrettable that after hearing about the defeat of the Black God Emperor and the Emperor Dairy, they fled without hesitation, resulting in the Giant Axe Supreme and others not leaving them. Jian Wushuang and Shoshin Supreme have the old one, and naturally it is a shame to meet again. At the feast, everyone laughed and smiled. When the interest was the highest, when a major event was finalized. After today's feast, the Palace of Life and the Starry Sword Sect, the Nine Emperor Pavilion, and the Overlord family formed an alliance relationship, and since then they have supported each other and moved forward together. No vow was made between them, because the core hub of this alliance is Jian Wushuang. As long as Jian Wushuang does not die one day, this alliance will last forever. At the banquet, Jian Wushuang noticed that a pair of beautiful eyes had been staring at him and could not help sighing, and said hello to Wu Jianxian, the owner of the beautiful eyes. Jian Wushuang, I've seen Lord Wu Jianxian. For Wu Jianxian, Jian Wushuang is quite admired. There are not many Supremes in this universe, and even fewer Supremes. With the help of a woman's body, Wu Jianxian can reach the top of the universe, stand on top of the universe, break the Star River, and take charge of one path. Okay. Wu Jianxian nodded. She was tall, with three-dimensional facial features, her hair was tied up, and she passed it through a white gold jade pendant, giving it an extremely capable and heroic feeling. Ooh, really good. She glanced up and down, sword unparalleled, and then said lightly, as an invincible supremacy and enlightenment with swords, Wu Jiangxian's vision is naturally not low. She looked at it with a single glance, and Jian Wushuang was full of breath without sending out. She had a great understanding of kendo, not even behind her. Mr. Wu Jianxian is ridiculous. Jian Wushuang nodded. She knew that Wu Jianxian would talk to him naturally. It would not be so simple to just be one or two. Sure enough, after seeing Wu Jianxian groaning for a moment or two, she finally said, Jian Wushuang, can you show me the Tai Luo Excalibur? Is Tai Luo Di Jian? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes upon hearing the words. He had heard a few points about the relationship between Wu Jianxian and Tai Luo Supreme, so he didn't hesitate, nodding back. It is good. After that, Jian Wushuang took out the Tai Luo Excalibur and handed it to Wu Jianxian. Wu Jianxian looked at the Tai Luo divine sword. The state of perpetual trembling suddenly trembled. The color of recollection surged in his eyes. That smiling and proud universe that year, whoever we are, once attacked Tsing Yi's arrogant Tai Luo Jianzun and returned. Taro. Wu Jiangxian's 5 onion fingers gently rubbed the blade of Taro's Excalibur, and some of them were fascinated. It wasn't until a long time later that she returned to God and handed back the Tai Luo magic sword to Jian Wushuang, whispering softly, "Thank you." After a pause, Wu Jianxian took a deep breath, flipped her right hand again, and a golden scabbard appeared in her hand. Jiang Wushuang, you are the heir to the Supreme Luo, so this thing should belong to you. This is... Jian Wushuang's pupils shrank, and he suddenly found that after the scabbard appeared, the tailor magic sword trembled suddenly, trying to break free from the sword without hands and enter the scabbard. Emperor Jiutian. Chapter 4407. With a clear whistle, Tai Luo Di Jian shot into the golden scabbard. Suddenly, a muffled sound rang out of the scabbard, and a sense of completeness came, as if the Taro Excalibur and the scabbard were one. Wu Jianxian said with a smile, "The sword is unparalleled. The world only knows the Taro sword, but it doesn't know the Taro sword sheath. Only the Taro sword has the Taro sword sheath. Is it invincible?" "Is that so?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and then said, "What does this mean? I have to ask Master Wu Jianxian to make it clear." Wu Jianxian groaned for a while and said, "Jian Wushuang, have you ever heard of Jidao Shenbing?" Jidao Shenbing? Jian Wushuang heard this for a moment and then thought back. "I've heard one or two, but I don't know much." Wu Jianxian explained, "The real soldiers of Jidao should be called the ancestors of Jidao, but the 7 strongest weapons that appeared at the beginning of chaos and the universe were born, enough to suppress the universe. These 7 stalks of ancestral ancestors have different functions. For example, your penthouse chaos tripod is one of the 7 stalks of ancestors and created by the master. The Tai Luo Excalibur is also one of the 7 ancestors of the stalk, and it is the master's kill. However, it is precisely because of the killing of the master of the Tai Luo Excalibur that his temper is one of the most violent of the 7 armed ancestors. With a little carelessness, it is easy to eat back the host, and it is easy to demonize the stain and damage. And this scabbard from the Seraph Sword can play a role in suppressing and nurturing the Seraph Sword. As long as the Taro sword sheath is present, the Taro Excalibur can continue to grow and become stronger and stronger." After Wu Jianxian said, "Seeing Jian Wushuang still looks like he can't understand," he shook his head and smiled. "Sword Wushuang, this is too powerful for the sword sheath. You may not understand it now, and you will naturally know it in the future." "No. Well, I came to the Temple of Life today. One is to see you, and the other is to see the Taro sword. Now that I have wished, I will go first." After saying that, Wu Jianxian said goodbye to the Supreme Master Xie, and drove the flying sword, flying away, just like the Yi Pingzhou, heading for Shanghai. There was a touch of contemplation in Jian Wu's eyes, and holding the exposed sword handle of the Taro Excalibur, A sense of blood-to-heart connection was sensed from his mind. He felt that at that time, a trace of evil thoughts left by Tai Luo Supreme on Tai Luo's Excalibur was finally cleared away and gradually restored to the purest and most perfect state. Time passed slowly, and the 3-day feast finally came to an end. This feast not only finalized the alliance between the Palace of Life, the Patriarch, and the 9 Emperors Pavilion, but also promoted 2 new chief executives. 6th Chief Supreme, King of 9 Calamities. The 7th Chief Supreme, Sword Unparalleled. In this regard, there is no objection to the entire Life Shrine. Originally, the Supreme of the Life Shrine, only the top Supreme can serve, but although the King of 9 Kings only has a medium Supreme practice, it is definitely a top Supreme, even stronger. Not to mention the sword Wushuang, when it was still the ultimate dominator, it was able to slay the Supreme, and now he has obtained the Supreme Avenue, completely unlocking the Terra Excalibur, and it is unnecessary to know that the sword Wushuang must be strong at the moment already. The Shrine of Life is full of congratulations. That night, the top of the moon is a little starry. The 6th mountain range of the Shrine of Life, on a mountaintop. The sword sat cross-legged, the whole person seemed to be integrated with the full moon next to the mountain, and at first glance it looked like Gu Shixian, unstained by the earth. Behind him, the Overlord stood respectfully, sweeping the audience since Jian Wushuang, breaking through the Supreme, he completely lost his heart to Jian Wushuang. At the beginning, he helped Jian Wushuang in this way, and there was a gambling element. The future of gambling Wushuang will not be low, which will feed back to him and the whole family. But now, he is determined that the sword is unparalleled, and the future is expected to become a giant arm of the universe. Leader, do you need to take Mrs. Wushuang? Said the Overlord Xin Sheng. Jian Wushuang thought about it and shook his head. It still won't work. Let Shuanger stay with Senior White Ape first. After I have completely resolved the turmoil, I will pick her up in person. When it comes to the word turbulence, Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed a slaughter. The Overlord was shocked, and then took a deep breath. League, do you intend to take action against the dragons? Jian Wushuang nodded his head and shook his head again. The dragon is a towering giant tree with deep roots and is not easy to destroy. Such good dishes must naturally be placed at the end. As for the great Sun God Kingdom, Taishu Temple, etc. Of course it's time to calculate the old accounts. The sword was bilingual and suddenly turned cold. He acted with his sword in his entire life and never took the initiative to deceive others, but too many powerful forces such as the Temple of Deficiency had to go in and attack him again and again. His sword is unparalleled, he is already moved to kill. The Lord, when do we start? The Overlord asked. Jian Wushuang heard the thoughts flashing in his eyes, and said, I haven't completely stabilized the Supreme Realm yet. I'll talk about it until I completely stabilize the Supreme Divine Realm. Yes. The Overlord nodded, then said, League, then I will retreat first and prepare with Yengu and Jiuxing Sun. It didn't take long for the Overlord to congratulate. On the top of Shao Ses Mountain, only Tian Mingmingyu and Jian Wushuang were companions. The sword sat cross-legged, his right hand turned over, and Tai Luo Jiandian appeared in his hand. Now he breaks through the Supreme. The following 3 sword styles of Tai Luo Jiandian are naturally no longer crippled and can be read through. The first form of Tai Luo Jiandian is called Yong Yi, and the second form is called Daybreak. The two seem to be unrelated, but they are intertwined. The third form is called Dusk, Hero's Twilight, God's Twilight. This style is a sword to cut God. In the eyes of Jian Wu, the scene of the sun setting in the west appeared. In this scene, a blue sword opened the gate of heaven, the mighty sword vibrated Kunlun, rolled the dragon's wall, and wiped out all the supreme heaven. Not too hesitant, Jian Wushuang continued to turn to the fourth style. The fourth style of Terra Sword Code, for seasons. As the name suggests, this Tai Lu sword canon is called the fourth form of the 4 seasons, which contains the 4 sword meanings of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Compared to the first 3 styles, the 4-season sword has a deeper and deeper intention, and its obscurity and complexity, even today's sword Unparalleled, are quite difficult to understand. This also makes the sword unparalleled emotion. Tai Luo Supreme deserves to be the first sword honor since ancient times. Its talent on the kendo, I am afraid that he is not in the slightest under his sword unparalleled. If I want to really catch up with Tai Luo Jianzun, at least I will get the Supreme. Jian Wushuang shook his head, realized the sword style of the 4 seasons, took a deep breath, and finally opened the last page of Tai Luo Jiandian. 5th form Taro. Chapter 4408. Taro. This is the last form of Terra Sword Code, named directly after Taro Supreme, and its hegemony can be imagined. This sword was created by Tai Luo Supreme in his later years, and it is also the greatest dependence of Tai Luo Jianzhua to rely on the universe and lone towns. This sword contains all the insights of Tai Luo's supreme invincible kendo, but the master of Taoism in his life. I'm invincible, who can I let go of? I'm so brave. Jian Wu's eyes flickered and he took a deep breath. Immediately, Jian Wushuang's thoughts sank into this Taro sword style. Next moment, the scene in front of Jian Wushuang suddenly changed, the bright moon on the mountain disappeared, the violent wind disappeared, and he seemed to be trapped in a virtual space. In front of him, a blue shirt stood with his back to his back. Taro Supreme. Jian Wu's eyes narrowed and he asked, "My successor, you finally turned the last page." The voice of the blue shirt was low and turned slowly. His face was clear, his face was long and thin, his eyes were sharp, and he was 300 pre-chaos blue shirt sword gods. I wait for you for a long time. He glanced up at the sword unparalleled and said. Jian Wushuang looked at him the same way. Of course, the person in front of him wouldn't really be Tai Luo Supreme. If he guessed right, Tai Luo Supreme at this moment should be the mark left in the Tai Luo sword code before his death. Come on, little guy, let me see how much strength you have as my heir. Tai Luo Supreme spoke faintly, and then his eyes flashed a sharp sense of sharpness. A long sword condensed by divine energy was held in his hand. It is good. Sword Wushuang nodded, a flash of hotness flashed in his eyes, and a long sword condensed in his hands. Regarding the thousands of chaos eras that galloped across the universe and fell into the 300 chaos prehistoric eras, the Tailor Supreme has long been fascinated for a long time. Now, this opportunity is finally before us. A battle across time and space begins. Tai Luo Supreme stepped on and disappeared in an instant. The next moment, he had already appeared behind Jian Wu's body, and he stabbed fiercely. So fast. Jian Wushuang's pupils shrank, and the response was not slow. Without turning back, he already inserted a sword obliquely, and the grid blocked the thorn. Your sword, it's too slow. Tai Luo Supreme spoke coldly, throwing his right foot like a giant axe, and slamming it on the sword perilous waist. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang fell all over, and the huge power from his waist made him take a few steps forward. Before he could return to God, the figure of Tai Luo Supreme flashed again, and he appeared in front of the sword without 2 sides. Jian Wushuang looked up and saw a dark sword mangling, which was constantly enlarged in his eyes, and finally slashed at him severely. Consciousness collapsed. It was only after a long, long time that Jian Wushuang's consciousness recovered in this virtual space. Tai Luo supremely bares the back of his hand facing Jian Wushuang, and a low voice comes out of his mouth. My successor, the way kendo is, the stronger the magical power, the stronger kendo. Even if it is the most basic thorn, chop, and chop, it will reach an extreme, and it will also give out the strongest power. As long as murder is a murder sword. Jian Wushuang heard the words, could not help but fall into meditation. Among the opponents of Tai Luo Supreme just now, Tai Luo Supreme did not use any mighty swordsmanship, but defeated him with a stab or a split. There was no chance for him to use kendo magical powers. Gradually, there was a tinge of enlightenment in Jian Wushuang's eyes. At this moment, Tai Luo Supreme has once again killed with a sword. Don't be distracted when facing the enemy. Tai Luo Supreme spoke coldly, and the whole person turned into a cyan afterimage. The speed was extremely fast, and thousands of swords were split in an instant. Come! Sword hunting warfare was captured in the eyes of Jian Wushuang. At the same step, the divine power broke out and he collided towards Tai Luo Supreme. Ding ding ding! The two instantly fought for 100 moves. After a jaw stick. Breaking dawn. Taro Supreme suddenly turned into a golden light, sprinting forward and slashing the sword unparalleled. The way to Kendo lies in the convergence of moves, its enemies with the fastest speed and the most convenient way. Do you understand? Time passes slowly. From the outside, Jian Wushuang seems to be transformed into a sculpture, sitting cross-legged on the mountain. In fact, Jian Wushuang is immersed in the space of Tai Luo and fights against Tai Luo Supreme day and night. Taro Supreme, after all, has lived through thousands of chaos eras and once stood on the top of the universe. When it comes to the consciousness of Kendo, it is much deeper and deeper than that of swords. One practice is only 700,000 years, and there are thousands of times of chaos. There is no comparison between the two. In the confrontation between the two, Jian Wushuang is like a sponge, absorbing the insights of Tai Lu's supreme Kendo madly. Jian Wushuang's Kendo realm began to rise at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Tai Luo Supreme, like a gold medal sparring, constantly helps Jian Wushuang grow. 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years. In the blink of an eye, 5,000 years passed in this trial space. In these 5,000 years, Jian Wushuang did not stop fighting with Tai Luo Supreme for a moment. He was killed by 688 times by Tai Luo Supreme. Gradually, Jian Wushuang went from having no fight back to becoming 1 or 2 against Tai Luo Supreme. At your fingertips, 5,000 years have passed. In this 5,000 year, Jian Wushuang has grown so impressive that he can fight against Tai Luo Supreme without losing the slightest disadvantage. And with the passage of time, the victory is constantly leaning towards Jian Wushuang. If this is known to the outside world, I am afraid that it will set off a stormy sea in the universe. In just 10,000 years, Jian Wushuang has caught up with thousands of Chaos-era Kendo consciousnesses of Tai Luo Supreme. What a horrible learning talent! How fast is it growing? Huh! Tai Luo Supreme turned into a blue shadow, while Jian Wushuang turned into a black light. Both speeds are extremely fast, constantly flashing and colliding in the void, pulling up numerous afterimages. The sword light flickered, the sword shadow was heavy, intertwined with each other. Tai Luo Supreme and Jian Wushuang, both of them are filled with skyward sword energy and are extremely extreme. The two men fought 1,000 times in an instant, and a long stream of sparks sputtered from the sword in their hands. Breaking dawn. Tai Luo Supreme sighed coldly and immediately became one with the sword, turning into a golden light of dawn, like the lightning that tore the night, and rushed towards the sword Wushuang. Chopper star! Jian Wushuang's head was full of black hair flying, and a forest blue sword mang was instantly split. This sword firmly locked Taro Supreme and chopped it straight, making Taro Supreme's broken dawn sword slightly stagnant. Next moment, breaking dawn! Jian Wushuang stepped on his right foot, and also transformed into the dawning sword, and rushed towards Tai Luo Jianzun. Huh! A huge shock wave exploded, and Tai Luo Jianzun and Jian Wushuo crossed the long sword in a cross and collided together. The strong wind blew their hair. In the eyes of the two, they are shooting out of the war. Click, click, click. Immediately, the sword in the hands of Tai Luo Jianzun was broken inch by inch. There was a smile of satisfaction on his clear face. My successor, if you have a chance in the future, please kill a man named Emperor Eater for me. After taking a deep look at Jian Wushuang, Tai Luo Supreme gradually annihilated, turning into black smoke. Then, like the same black line, these black smokes penetrated into Jian Wushuang's brows. The fifth form of the Terra Sword Code, Taro, impressively reflected in Jian Wushuang's mind. Chapter 4409. Click and wipe. The virtual space is constantly broken. Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a sharp sword flickered in his eyes. The strong wind on the top of the mountain is still turbulent, and the full moon next to it is still bright. For Jian Wushuang, he has been in the virtual space for more than 10,000 years, but to the outside world, it has only passed half of Zhuxiang time. This harvest is too big. Jian Wushuang couldn't help sighing. Through this 10,000 years of training and teaching, he not only mastered the 5 styles of kendo magic in the Terra Sword Code, but also fully realized Taro's supreme kendo and even strengthened it on the basis. He defeated Tai Luo Supreme in the virtual space, which already represents that he is stronger than the Tai Luo Supreme when he was waiting for the Supreme at the beginning. This does not include other means of sword unparalleled, such as Chaos Overlord, Special Life, and so on. This is an epic enhancement to Jian Wushuang. The cold evening wind blew the long hair of Jian Wushuang. After a moment, Jian Wushuang lowered his head, and there was a hint of thought in his eyes. Emperor. According to Tai Luo Supreme, if Jian Wushuang did not guess wrong, this person called Empress was afraid that it was the culprit that caused Tai Luo Supreme to fall indirectly or directly. You must know that the Taro Supreme that the top Supreme repaired at that time, with the Taro Excalibur in his hand and the extremely terrifying kendo magical power, has been enough to sweep the universe, suppress the peoples, is not weaker than the Invincible Supreme, and even enough to kill Invincible Supreme. Maybe in the universe, there are very rare characters in the universe who can defeat Taro Supreme, but they can kill him directly, and even the people who destroy Taro's kingdom are almost zero. If there are such characters in the universe, Jian Wushuang would not be unaware. After all, the fall of Tai Luo Supreme is actually no more than 300 chaos ages, not too far away. Who is this Bite Eater? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes, and he determined that he had never heard of this character. He was almost killed by a group of mysterious Supremes when he was in the Jui Starfield. Those mysterious and Supremes seem to be called 7 or 5. After a moment, Jian Wushuang shook his head. Since he didn't understand, he simply stopped thinking. Also, if I can meet the Emperor Eater later and I can beat him, then I will kill him for you. Jian Wushuang faintly whispered to himself. The next time, Jian Wushuang did not rush to leave, but announced to the Bloodwave Supreme and announced the retreat again. During this long-running battle with Tai Luo Supreme, he realized that there are too many things, and he needs to carefully sort out one or two to make it fully understand. As time went by, 5,000 years passed again. In the universe, the calm have gradually recovered. The 5 major forces, such as Taishu Temple, Shuetian Temple, and Qiang God Kingdom, seem to have really died down and kept silent about the sword unparalleled. And the most powerful dragon, once the crown of the universe, did not come out as a demon for a while, and fell into a state of silence. The whole universe is a peaceful color. 5,000 years later, the Shrine of Life is day by day. The 6th mountain, which belongs to the manor of Jian Wushuang, has been transformed into the Supreme Mansion with his 7th highest position. Crunch. Suddenly, the gate of the manor house, which had been locked for 5,000 years, was slowly pushed open from the inside by a white palm. A cold young man wearing a gold-plated robe with a corner of clothing, a sword hanging from his waist and purple gold eyes, stepped out of the manor step by step. See Warriors Supreme. At the gate of the manor house, 2 disciples of the Palace of Life, when they saw Jian Wushuang at first, immediately bowed and said hello. Okay. Jian Wushuang slightly yelled at their heads, and they greeted him. Then, as soon as they stepped, they turned into swordsmanship and shot at the Supreme Temple. Grunt grunt. The fierce howling wind in the air passed quickly across Jian Wushuang's cheek. Now that everything is in place, it's time to settle the old accounts. In the eyes of Jian Wushuang's purple gold, there was an indifference. In these 5,000 miles, he finally mastered the Wudao Tongtian Shentong of Tai Luo Jiandian and mastered the Supreme Realm firmly. The already terrible sword is unparalleled, and the strength goes to the next level. A moment later, the Supreme Temple arrived. Only 5,000 years ago, there has been no change in the Supreme Temple. Only the Supreme Master of Blood, it seems that he has already learned the news of Jian Wushuang's exit. Supreme Blood. Jian Wushuang stepped in and nodded towards Bloodwave Supreme. Sword unparalleled, have you completely stabilized the Supreme Realm? Bloody Supreme asked with a smile. Fortunately, no shame. Jian Wushuang said with a smile. The two of them shivered for a while, and saw the Supreme suffering suddenly sighed and asked, Jian Wushuang, I know why you came, but are you ready to start working for those 6 forces? There is nothing to hide from this. Jian Wushuang nodded and calmly replied, yes, it's time to settle old accounts with them. Bloodwave Supreme heard a deep look at Jian Wushuang and asked again, are you ready, Jian Wushuang? Jian Wushuang said, except for the Dragon Clan, he is not sure how to deal with it. The other major forces are no longer in the eyes of Jian Wushuang. Even if they have any whole cards, Jian Wushuang is confident and cannot pose a lethal threat to him. That's good. Xie Wushuan smiled comfortably. Although he doesn't know how strong Jian Wushuang is today, he knows Jian Wushuang's temperament. If he has more than 80% certainty, Jian Wushuang will not take risks. Lost and risked. After thinking about it, Xie Baxian Shinin said, Jian Wushuang, this time you go to the 6 forces, our life shrine, it is estimated that we cannot help you. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. It was to his surprise that the Temple of Life experienced 2 wars, and the Supreme was severely damaged. And Jian Wushuang did not intend to drag anyone into the water this time, including Jianming. Jian Wushuang, come, these are the 6 forces information that I collected for you during this time, you will see later. Bloodwave Supreme flipped his right hand, took out a roll of jade tube and handed it to Jian Wushuang, and then said, Sword unparalleled, I suggest it is best to start with the Blood Temple. Among these 6 forces, the Blood Temple is not only the weakest one, but also the one with the deepest roots and the highest strength is the Blood Temple Master, who is top-notch. Is the Blood Temple? Okay, I will consider it. Jian Wu's eyes flashed a thought. The two trembled for a while, and Jian Wushuang wore a bamboo block on his head and left the Palace of Life. Chapter 44:10. In the universe, the stars are flickering and boundless. Among them, there is an asteroid group in the depths of the universe. There are thousands of small and large stars in this asteroid group, mixed with dragons and snakes, and all kinds of people who are illustrious and vicious. Therefore, this asteroid group is also called the Sin Field. The Blood Temple was built in this sinful star domain. Among the top forces in the universe, the Blood Temple is not powerful. At first, the whole force is the highest cultivation person, but it is only the Blood Temple Master. Succession from generation to generation. However, the Blood Temple is definitely the most difficult force to deal with. They are like poisonous snakes living in dark corners. Once they are targeted, they are like dead bones, endless and pervasive. Therefore, few people in the universe are willing to provoke the group of bugs in Blood Temple. At this moment, deep inside the sinister realm, a large hall built on the poison mist marsh. Dear Lord, this is the blood food from the new memorial below. There was no light in the hall, and it was quiet and quiet. A man in a black robe stepped into the hall, and spoke toward the throne hidden deep in the hall. Immediately, a husky voice came from the depths of the hall with a tired voice. Let the blood food go. Yes. The man in black robe nodded respectfully, turned his right hand down, and suddenly a black iron cage appeared in the hall. Inside the cage, dozens of ultimate masters were locked inside like pigs and poultry, with a look of panic. This is where? Let me out. My master is the Supreme Master of Nanming in the Southern Star Domain. Hurry up and let me go, or wait for my master to come to your door. You have no good fruit to eat. Please, please let me go. Suddenly, yelling and begging for mercy began to ring. However, the more they shouted, the more disturbed they became. Next moment, a ray of blood shot from deep in the hall, and then rolled back, rolling the entire black iron cage into it. In the hall, there were numerous muffled sounds and screams. After a while, the shouting screams stopped, and a middle-aged man wearing a wide blood robe with an evil appearance stepped out of the hall step by step. This person, he is the master of the Blood Temple, the supreme of blood temple. Blood 7, the recent blood food, the quality is not good. Shuetian Supreme's lips were a little seductive and red, and he stuck out his tongue and licked the corner of his mouth, looking at the black-robed man hoarsely. The black-robed man smiled bitterly when he heard the words and replied, "The temple master, this sinister Starfield-talented seedling has been eaten. If you want to find new blood food, you have to leave here. The Sin Realm went looking for it." Blood Heaven Supreme waved his hands and said, "That's it." The man in black robe nodded, and then asked with great concern, "Master, how is your body recovering? How's it going?" The Lord of the Blood Heaven Palace heard the words, and a flash of resentment flashed in his eyes. 2 times before and after strangling Jian Wushuang, the first time Jian Wushuang was rescued by the Patriarch's ancestors, and he even took the punch of the Patriarch's ancestors with a punch. Although the punch didn't hit the Pa ancestor at random, and it was not entrained to kill, he was still collapsed by the bombed body and was seriously injured. Later, he finally recovered from the injury, and then participated in the battle to level the life shrine. First, he battled the Axe Supreme, and was bombarded by bombers. Then he was bombarded by the Chaos God Thunder that was introduced by sword warriors. Suddenly, the injury broke out. If he hadn't left quickly at that time, I was afraid that there would be danger of falling that day. If this were not the case, he would not rely on just some ultimate masters as blood food to speed up the recovery of the blood demon body. Damn sword unparalleled. Thought of this, the blood of the supreme venom is even more venomous. Jian Wushuang, wait and see. One day, this place will turn you into blood, eat its flesh, and sleep on its skin. After taking a deep breath, the supreme venom gradually dissipated. He converged his thoughts and opened his mouth to ask the Hypo people, "Blood 7, have there been any visions at the Temple of Life recently?" The man in the black robe replied, "Return to the Lord of the Temple, the universe has been peaceful in recent years. The Temple of Life has been recuperating, and Jian Wushuang has no movements. It should still be in the Temple of Life to consolidate the Supreme State." "Well, that's fine." Shuetian Supreme heard a sigh of relief, and now he is in a very weak state. I don't know how much the combat power has fallen compared to the peak period. I am afraid that Jian Wushuang will come to him for trouble at this time. Jian Wushuang's talents and strength, the entire universe is already aware of it. Although the 2 sides of the sword have just broken through the elementary supreme realm, many people in the universe have divided the strength of the sword unparalleled into the highest level, even the sword unparalleled. The braggers even said that Jian Wushuang already had top-notch combat power. Well, when this seat recovers this time, it will almost be able to break through the half-step invincible supreme. When the time comes, Shanqiangbi will fall to Huangquan, and I will kill the sword unparalleled. Blood Heaven Supreme hummed. Breakthrough. The man in the black robe had 7 bloods. When he heard the words, he was immediately overjoyed, and immediately kneeled down. She said, "That's small. First congratulate the Lord here. I wish the Lord generations through generations, unified the universe." Shuetian Supreme heard a smile, reached out and touched the head of Blood 7 and said, "Blood 7, for the sake of your loyalty, this seat assures you, as long as you follow this seat obediently, you will definitely be your goodness is indispensable." Not finished. An extremely cold sound suddenly exploded. "Did you die with you?" "Huh." The next moment, the gate of the blood temple was ripped apart. A stern young man with a bucket hat and a black robe and a sword around his waist stepped in. "You are Swords warriors?" Suddenly, the smile on Shuetian Supreme's face solidified, and then the scalp became numb. The Blood 7 did not respond for a moment, staying in place. "Extreme bloody, long time no see." The corner of Jian Wushuang's mouth opened a touch of Mori cold radian, and said lightly, "Jian Wushuang, why are you here? Where is the blood clothing guard? Blood Jun, what about blood?" At this time Xie Qifeng reacted and screamed. He clearly remembers that there are many blood clothing guards around the blood temple, and the 2 vice halls of Blood Jun and Blood Veterinarian are in charge of the overall situation. The two deputy hall masters are all medium to supreme practice. Jian Wushuang, how could it be silent and entered the blood temple? Shuetian Supreme did not speak, and his face was ugly. You don't need to ask him to know that the blood cloak guarding the blood temple and the two deputy temple masters of the blood monarch blood have all died in the hands of Jian Wushuang. And why is it so silent? It can only prove that Jian Wushuang's strength is far above them. Chapter 44:11. Jian Wushuang, what do you want to do? Shuetian Supreme looked at Jian Wushuang gloomily, said coldly. Jian Wushuang didn't answer, but reached out to take off the cloak and let the black hair roll away. This said with a smile, Blood Day, you seem to be weak now. Shuetian Supreme heard a cold snorting, narrowed his eyes and said, Han Han, Jian Wushuang, it seems you want to kill me? At the same time, he slowly began to accumulate divine power. Blood Days, I wasn't the ultimate overlord that year. When you see me weak, you bully again and again, and you even have to settle down the palace of life. Sword Wushuang slowly spoke. Blood Heaven Supreme heard the words, and a slap of blood drew from the corner of his mouth, sneer and said, Jian Wushuang, this universe is originally weak meat and strong food. Do you not understand the reason? At the beginning you were weak, you should be deceived, who blame? Shaking his head in disdain, Shuetian Supreme continued and said, Jian Wushuang, this place tells you the truth, I only hate why I didn't do it earlier and cut you out. This makes your bereaved dog a climate now. Really? Jian Wushuang nodded and then smiled. Blood Days, you saw me as a gnat that pinched to death. Now, in my eyes, isn't it also a gnat? Huh. The words fell, Jian Wushuang stepped on his right foot and immediately shattered the whole blood temple, shattering the whole person like a cannonball, and rushed towards Blood Heaven Supreme. He didn't pull his sword at all, just the surging blood from his body had shaken all directions. In the next breath, Jian Wushuang appeared instantly above the Blood Heaven Supreme, his right hand condensed into a fist, and Jin Guangkankin on his fist, like pushing a golden chariot, blasted towards the head of Blood Heaven Supreme. Sword unparalleled. Do you really think you can sweep the universe by breaking through the Supreme? Shuetian Supreme grinned, and a white curved sickle appeared in his hand. Go die! A large amount of supreme divine power poured out from the Blood Heaven Supreme hand, poured into the demon sickle in his hand, and split the sword like a cold moon. A layer of purple venom is attached to this demon sickle blade, which is enough to directly corrode and melt the Supreme. Even if the top Supreme is contaminated a little, it will be severely damaged. Hey! However, a scene that scared him happened. This indestructible white demon sickle was split on the sword's chaotic domineering body, without even breaking the skin, tearing a long string of sparks. How can it be? Blood Heaven Extreme trembled in his heart. How impossible! Jian Wushuang heard a sneer. Chaos Overlord was the first of all ages. When he was the ultimate dominator, he punched the mid-level Supreme Jinan with a punch, and later shook Chaos God Thunder. Its strong and overbearing place can be seen from this. And after he was baptized by grenades and broke through the Supreme, he not only repaired it a step further, but also the physical strength of the Chaos God body rose even higher. If the Blood Heaven Supreme is still at its peak, he will not be so encumbered, but now the Blood Heaven Supreme is still injured, and it is not bad to play half of his strength. How can he hurt him? Native chicken tile dog. Boom! The sword Wushuang's fist directly blasted through the chest of Blood Heaven Supreme as if it were a cannon. Under the might of this fist, thousands of miles away from the surrounding land were all trembling, like a terrifying earthquake. Suddenly, the bloody Supreme reverted to a blushing complexion, which instantly turned pale. He stared at Jian Wushuang again, terrified in his heart. This son is already strong enough to pervert. I'm afraid he's in the top extreme enough to sweep invincible. Suddenly, Shuetian Supreme thought flashed wildly, and pushed a Qi with a dull face next to him. Help this seat block the sword unparalleled. The next moment, Bloody Heaven took a deep breath and turned to escape madly. Master of the temple! Suddenly, Sweki looked at Jian Wushuang, who was killed by Ta Tian, and he was struck with excitement. Sword unparalleled, it's none of my business. His lips trembled fiercely, and there was a look of hope in his eyes. He was a medium supreme, but before the sword was double-sided at the moment, there was not even a trace of resistance. None of your business? The sword was two-sided and expressionless, and the voice Moran said, when you slaughtered the disciples of Life Shrine, did you ever think that it was not their business? When you went to the wild wilderness of the universe to kill me, have you ever thought about it? The purple Chuan imprint of the sword without a pair of eyebrows is looming, and in the eyes of the purple gold, there is a murder. Huh! Immediately, Jian Wushuang reached out with his right hand, and his five-fingered swords were entangled with a snake-like spirit, which slaps the blood seven directly into a powder. After doing all this, Jian Wushuang looked up and saw that the blood god supreme had turned into a red on and quickly flew away in a certain direction. You can't escape. Jian Wushuang's expression was indifferent, and when he stepped on it, he turned into a streamer and quickly chased toward the supreme of blood. This chase fled, and immediately alarmed the entire Sin starfield. Almost tens of thousands of practitioners inhabited the asteroid group. After noticing this scene, they looked up and saw that they were shocked to the extreme. Look at it, Blood Heaven Supreme is being hunted down. What? Who can kill the Bloody Supreme? So, that person seems to be a sword unparalleled. Instantly, the word sword warriors came out as if a heavy bomb had been dropped in the crowd. We must know that the Supreme of Bloody Sky is the oldest top Supreme. In this asteroid group, it is the Overlord who controls the right to kill and kill. The awe and fear of everyone have been engraved in his bones. They did not expect that they would break through the Supreme Sword Warrior, and they would be able to force the Bloody Supreme Zhangjie to flee. Go! Go after it! Hurry up! Suddenly, countless people glanced at each other, all of them rose into the sky, turned into a streamer, and chased in the direction of Jian Wushuang and Blood Heaven Supreme. Damn! Shuetian Supreme glanced at the sword Wushuang who kept pulling away from him behind him can't help but grit his teeth. His already overwhelmed deities at this moment were on the verge of fragmentation. Jian Wushuang, you forced me. Taking a deep breath, Blood Heaven Supreme seemed to have made a decision. There was a flash of pain in his eyes, and he turned sharply, rushing towards a planet not far away. There was a scarlet pool of blood that reached its extremes. Gollum. That pool of blood is like boiling water, and there are constant blood bubbles coming out of fists. Between sinking and floating, we can still see that there are countless stumps of broken limbs and complexion in the blood pool. Skull with eyes wide open. At the next moment, Blood Heaven Supreme, like a sharp arrow, rushed into this pool of blood. Chapter 44:12, Boom. The sky is full of flowers, and the supreme body gradually sinks into the depths of the blood pool and disappears. Okay. The sword that came after the killing stepped in a footstep, stagnated in the void, and looked down at the blood pool. Gurus. Blisters continued to flow from the depths of the blood pool. Immediately, the whole blood pool began to rotate, and a smell was coming. Pretend to be a ghost. The sword has no expression on both sides, and the right hand condenses into a fist. Countless golden lights flash, as if a round of sun hangs on his fist, and blasts towards this blood pool fiercely. Ha! A terrifying sound came. Immediately afterwards, the whole blood pool shook madly and was torn apart. Under this punch, heaven and earth seemed to fall, and the sun and the moon seemed to be broken. Those who followed closely to see the lively crowd felt only an extremely powerful oppression, released with the sword's right fist as the center. Sprinting their bodies are like stinging into a piece of transparent glass. And in that blood pool, the blood of the sky burst out. In the sky of the sky, a red mang was reaching the extreme speed, holding a meniscus sickle with a long iron chain in his hand, splitting it in front of Jian Wushuang. This split directly struck a series of sparks on the golden body of Jian Wushuang's golden light, and forced Jian Wushuang back 3 steps. Hong Zhong's loud voice echoed in the sky. Oh! Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed, and he raised his brow lightly towards the figure who came to him. I saw the red ons dissipating, revealing the supreme figure. However, at this moment, the supreme of blood god had already been judged as if they were two people. His tall and burly body had become thin and thin, as if he had been drained of blood, and his wrinkled skin was attached to his bones. The sides of his cheeks were deeply sunken, his eyes were protruding, not like a living person, but more like a skeleton evil spirit walking out of the underworld. Sword. Jian Wushuang, this blood pool was originally intended to break through the half-step invincible supreme. The result is because of you. I use it in advance to restore the injury, you it. The supreme voice was hoarse, panting slightly, and his eyes became flushed. Go to hell. Blood Heaven Supreme stepped hard, and suddenly turned into a blood light, as flashed, appeared in front of the sword without double sides. The sickle in his hand quickly split off. Huh! The Blood Heaven Supreme splits 13 times, and the speed is extremely fast. Each split is a mixture of endless evil spirits. By the way, the strong wind directly draws the starry earth underneath, forming a gutter of thousands of meters. This may seem simple, but in fact, each of these powers can directly kill a medium supreme. Is this the ultimate strength? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, and then the hunting war fought in his eyes. After breaking through the supreme, he has not really exploded in strength, and has long had itchy hands. Also, just take this bloody supreme to test my strength now. Come! Jian Wushuang laughed loudly, urging the Chaos Overlord completely, and the divine body emitted bright light from the inside and out, just like the 9-day god of war came to the world, throwing his fist and smashing towards the Blood Heaven Supreme. The magnificent qi and blood surged up, and the sword Wushuang's fist drove the qi machine directly to the demon moon sickle cut by the blood god supreme. Huh! Suddenly, a thunderous thunder blew, and a mighty gale swept across the entire stars under Jian Wu's feet, forming a sea of white waves. This isn't the end. The sword Wushuang who blasted out with one punch didn't give up. After a long laugh, he threw 13 punches repeatedly and smashed on the Blood Sky Supreme sickle that chopped 13 times. I saw Jian Wushuang open and close. Facing the Supreme who recovered the peak of his strength, there was no sign of concession. His fist blasted on the Supreme sickle, and the sickle that was booming kept trembling. Even if the Blood Heaven Supreme ran into bullying occasionally, he smashed into Jian Wushuang's body, and Jian Wushuang did not evade, and carried it purely with the flesh. Ding dang dang dang. The meniscus sickle slammed on Jian Wushuang, making a noise like hitting a steel plate. The sword Wushuang's divine brilliance shines, and the golden light is like a raging wave, standing like a fucking. It is undefeated, full of Xianggang, eternal and immortal charm. Blood Heaven Supreme, even if your strength returns to its peak, it's not good. Jian Wushuang twisted his head and spoke lightly. Until now, he has only used the power of Chaos Overlord. If he pulls out the Taro Excalibur, this blood god will be more vulnerable. Xuetian Supreme heard no words, but stared at Jian Wushuang hardly, panting more and more heavily. In the distance, the shocking force blasted by Jian Wushuang casually, the asteroid crowd slamming to the side looked at this scene, and was suddenly shocked to the extreme. Blood Heaven Supreme can't even break his defense? Jian Wushuang, is this still human? Someone took a breath and said in horror. Jian Wushuang's deeds, they have naturally heard of it, and understand that after Jian Wushuang broke through the Supreme, it must not be an ordinary elementary Supreme that can be compared. But they did not expect that today's sword unparalleled has reached the point where the bare hand is extremely hard. This is nothing. The most important point is that they know that the real strength of Jian Wushuang are not the undefeated physical body, but the superb swordsmanship that can suppress the world. If Jian Wushuang used the Taro Excalibur again, how strong would it be? Everyone dared not think about it anymore, but felt scalp tingling for a while. Above the stars, the supremely sunken cheeks of Blood Heaven Supreme were obviously aware of this. After taking a deep breath, A fascination was captured in the eyes of Shuetian Supreme, saying, "Sword unparalleled, this seat and you are endless. Mystery, gore fiend." He bit his tongue and sang with all his strength. Suddenly, the black robe on his body seemed to be blown by the wind, and hunting sounded. His skinny and dry body, like a balloon, started to inflate quickly. Click and wipe. In just a few breaths, he turned into a mountain-like meatball. It's not over yet, arm after arm, twisting and struggling out of his body. On his stomach, there are countless stern faces, some of them have expressions of fear, others are full of resentment, and there is more despair and pain. These people are all practitioners who are swallowed up by blood supreme as blood. Suddenly, in the eyes of everyone, Shuetian Supreme turned completely into an ugly and disgusting humanoid monster. When everyone saw this, they just fell into the ice cellar and got cold all over. A powerful breath emanates from the bloody Supreme. Sword unparalleled, you should be proud to see the true body of this seat. Blood Heaven Supreme opened his mouth, emitting horrific sound waves that did not resemble human beings, as if thousands of people were talking at the same time, overlapping, and it was horrible. The next moment he raised his hand and patted Jian Wushuang. A bucket of thick blood-colored vitality bombs condensed from the palm of his hand, and then slammed violently towards the sword Muzu. "Is this your real strength?" Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and knew for a while. Sure enough, the Supreme Master of Blood could not be so simple. But you still don't look good enough. Shaking his head, Jian Wushuang's 5 distinct knuckle fingers slowly held the hilt of the Taro Excalibur at the waist. Tai Luo Excalibur, 1 inch by 1 inch, began to scabbard. Chapter 44:13. Boom boom. The Terra Magic Sword only came out of the sheath for half a minute, and a stream of sword gas tornado spread out, forming a strong sword pressure. Jian Wushuang's head was full of black hair, and those purple and gold eyes flashed a sense of coldness. Draw sword and cut. Suddenly, the Terra Magic Sword turned into a mad snake, slamming down at the vitality of the blood column that was directed towards Jian Wushuang. At this moment, the entire expanse of the sky seemed to be divided by the mighty sea, as if divided into 2 sides, with only one line left. The vision in everyone's eyes turned black, and there was only one golden sword left, crossing a beautiful arc, slashing down. The real power of the Taro Excalibur burst out. Just like a knife-cut tofu, the blood column vitality projectile fired from the Blood Heaven Supreme was directly cut into 2, and it was very easy to break open. Tai Luo Jianmang continued to cut down towards the Blood Heaven Supreme. This kid. Shuetian Supreme gritted his teeth and stepped on the ground with his feet, and suddenly bounced like a large meatball, avoiding the sword. Although his size has become huge, his speed has not only slowed down, but has skyrocketed. Rumble. This sword was chopped on the asteroid under the foot of Blood Heaven Supreme, and it was like cutting an egg with a knife, cutting the whole star on both sides. And this is not to be said. After cutting the star without any hindrance, this practicing swordman continued to shoot the depths of the universe unabated, until it rushed out tens of thousands of feet before dissipating. The terrible sword air spread freely, turning the 2 sides of the sword into a restricted area. Jian Wushuang's expression was indifferent. Now he can break the galaxy with one sword and destroy the planet. Mystery, Blood Demon Arrow. Blood Heaven Supreme was in the starry sky. After looking at the sword unparalleled, he opened his mouth quickly. Suddenly, the tens of thousands of arms spawned from his body, and at the same time he tried to print. A voluptuous evil howl sounded from Bloody Supreme's stomach, as if the stomach was wriggling. Immediately, he saw blood arrows like snakes crawling out of thousands of arms on Bloody Supreme's body, blazing toward the sword Wushuang. There is no way to describe the spectacularness of this scene. Dense, countless blood arrows, covering the sky and the sun, filled all the heavens and the earth, and the speed came to an extreme. Each of these blood arrows has the horror of a primal supreme full blow. At this moment, all the arrows are launched, and after converging together, It is enough to shoot the top supreme into a sieve. Many asteroid monks watching in the distance saw this, but felt that their eyelids were jumping wildly, and they couldn't help spitting. Bloody Supreme is indeed too powerful. However, a scene that stunned them happened. In the face of tens of thousands of blood arrows like a rainstorm pear flower, Jian Wushuang just squinted his eyes and said indifferently, "Chopper." Suddenly, countless energy in the universe converged in the sword without hands, forming a magnificent forest blue sword rainbow, falling down. This sword, across the sky, runs through the sun and the moon. This sword fell. The sharp and powerful sword gas directly strangled all directions, almost shattering the countless blood swords into powder with almost a crushing attitude. One sword breaks everything. Blood Heaven Supreme is powerful, but Jian Wushuang is even more terrifying. Tuk tuk tuk. A dull voice sounded. Fortunately, the blood arrow that was not crushed by Jianxing Jianhong hit the sword Wushuang, but it did not penetrate the sword Wushuang, but it was like an arrow hitting a plate of 10 feet thick steel plate. After splashing out on Mars, it turned out to be flying. Moreover, Jian Wushuang also stretched out his big hand, lowered his head and grabbed a blood arrow, just like throwing a javelin, and threw it towards Blood Heaven Supreme. The blood arrows smashed by sword warriors, both in speed and power, have skyrocketed. Ha! Suddenly, Shuetian Supreme was hit by this reflected blood arrow, and the whole person stepped back 3 steps, his face flushed with a flush. This is not the end. The sword that was cut by Jian Wushuang before it was split. After shattering countless blood arrows, Jian Mang was only slightly dimmed, and it was severely chopped again on the Bloody Supreme chest, like playing baseball. In general, the Blood Heaven Supreme smashed and flew out. Suddenly, countless people watching in the distance were trembling and shaking. Among them, there are people who are far superior to the sword unparalleled, and even the Supreme exists, but at this moment they are all terrified. This sword Wushuang is a freak. Strong, unparalleled in swordsmanship. Not only invincible in attack, but also invincible in defense. Who else can fight sword invincible? The terror is half invincible below the Supreme. No, it should be said to be below the invincible Supreme. I'm afraid that there is no longer a person who can no longer pose a threat to Jian Wushuang. So horrible. At this moment, everyone was staring at Jian Wushuang, their eyes terrified. Prior to this, they never thought that the Lord of the Blood Celestial Palace, who had dominated the asteroid group for nearly 500 years, would one day be suppressed by people who are not invincible and supreme. It seems that in the hands of Jian Wushuang, Shuetian Supreme is not the cruel and fierce blood demon, but a random projectile. No wonder some people said before that without the means to meet Jian Wushuang in person, they would never understand the power of Jian Wushuang and the amazing talent. Countless people remembered the rumors that had been circulating in the universe before. They had secretly disdained to blow their noses and thought that the sword Wushuang repeatedly shot, either by relying on the treasures such as the tailored Excalibur and the Wui Chao Ding Ding, or using the power of thunder. The true level itself is not very good. But at this moment, they suddenly realized that they were wrong and how outrageous they were. They thought of another sentence circulating in the universe. How lucky it is to be in the same era as Jian Wushuang, and how unfortunate it is to be in the same era as Jian Wushuang. Since the rise of sword warriors, any Holy Land sons and divine sons who have been soaring in the depths of the universe before have disappeared invisible, and the word sword warriors have not been able to release even a little bit of light. In a respectful gaze, Jian Wushuang's expression was dull, and he came to the heavens and earth, and the flames of gold flames in his eyes shook the world, like a thunder. The Lord of the Blood Temple, if you are just capable of this, you will not be able to survive for a while. This remark dropped, and the Blood Heaven Supreme face suddenly changed into a piece of iron blue. Jian Wushuang, you are too arrogant. I have experienced thousands of battles in Blood Heaven. What storms have not seen? I tell you, Jian Wushuang, this seed is life or death, not you. You want to kill me, you are still far behind. The Blood Heaven Supreme roared and cast the secret method again. At this moment, he still hasn't given up, and he wants to break the dead net with Jian Wushuangjiu. Really? Jian Wushuang raised an eyebrow and then shook his head. Stubbornness. The voice fell, and Jian Wu's eyes flashed a cold killing, slowly speaking. Taro Sword Code, Second Style. In the deepest darkness, the first light torn apart. Breaking dawn. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.